What's up, 12s? It's Loaf the Tuba with the Seattle Seahawks, and you're watching NorbCam.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is NorbCam coming at you with a special edition, a special time here, doing the Coach's Corner with Coach Bill Marsh here on a Thursday. We had to kind of move things around this week because of some earlier schedule conflicts, but we are doing it. And as you can see from the title, we are going to be talking about Shaquill Griffin, one of the many free agent decisions the Seahawks are going to have to make in the next few weeks. Do we re-sign him? Do we not? What will happen with his brother if he goes? I don't know, we might talk a little bit about that. But there's been a lot of discussion about Richard Sherman now that he's a free agent, the possibility about Richard Sherman coming back here. And boy, the debate is quite high. I'm going to bring a little bit of introspection to that and a little bit of information from hearing from you guys what you thought about that. So feel free to jump in there and give me your opinion, what you think. If the Seahawks had to choose, which one would you go for? I'm kind of curious to see what you guys have to say. So before I bring the coach on to jump into this very heated debate, I just want to quickly remind everybody to smash the like button on this video, hit the subscribe button if you're not a subscriber already, and hit the notification bell, and that way you won't miss a single video in the future. And also wanted to thank everybody who is a member of the NORBFAM membership club, and I'm talking about the MVPs like Nick LeBeau, Anthony D, Jesse Duckface, and Ryker Rockstar, and the All-Pros, Maria, Maraj, Jason E, Casey, Sportsnerd, Aidan, Pham, and BJ. So thank you guys for being members of NorbFam and all your support. So let's get into it. Coach Marsh of Coach's Corner right here, and there he is. Coach Marsh, as we just talked like yesterday, and here we are again.
Yeah. Maybe it was like talking today. I mean, it felt like we were just talking last night, and all of a sudden here we go with the show. So, you able to hear me okay, Norb?
I can hear you fine, yeah.
Okay, good. Just making sure. I had some static there for a second. So, yeah, man, it just, great conversation last night with the guys. That was fun. But, now it just seems like even though there's really not a lot going on with the Seahawks, there's a lot going on with the Seahawks. I mean, a lot of news and rumors and all those type of things that, I try not to get too caught up in it. But, man, there's some hot topics. We are the top story across the NFL for a couple of reasons. So. Interesting offseason already.
Yeah, they call it an offseason. It doesn't feel like anything's off at all. It seems like the season is red hot and firing. So before we jump head first into this, I always want to make sure everybody knows who you are, because some people might be joining the show for the first time. And I want to make sure those people who are jumping here, welcome for watching us here. And I want to make sure that they know who you are. So Coach Marsh, let's talk a little bit about who you are and a little bit of your background here.
Well, and I always find it interesting and neat when I see the comments like, coach of what? And what does he know? And all those things. Where's he coached and all that? So I appreciate you letting me have, a little chance to give some credibility at the beginning of this thing. I coached for, 25 years. Coached mostly at the high school level. I had a great career there, but had some really neat opportunities to go coach at the next level. Just thought that the high school level is where I could make the greatest impact and make a difference. And then my mentors, one of them was Sherman Smith, who was a running back for the Seahawks, and then he was my high school coach. And then he was, coached Marshawn Lynch and coached Eddie George and was in the NFL for 22 years. And then the other one was my high school mentor as an assistant when I was an assistant, Chuck Tarbox, who was ranked the number 8 coach of the 20th century by multiple outlets back in 1999. So I was really lucky to just have a lot of great people around me. And so I think that fast tracked me to just some really neat things. And I had a chance to meet you through, the love of video and the fact that we just happen to have our paths cross in a really neat way about 20 years ago. And you guys elevated our game and elevated our team because of the fact that you guys took it to another level when it came to being all mic'd up and all those fun things that we did. So, I think it was a neat back and forth when we came together because it helped me have the magical run that I think I had in some really neat ways. And, I don't equate it to championships because some people, I don't want to get into the debate. Am I greater than some other coach because of championships? I feel like I took my teams to the places that they needed to go, and we won some really, really neat games and had some great seasons. And you caught most of them on video. So
yeah.
Fun stuff.
Definitely caught a lot of some amazing games, some heartbreaking losses, but also some amazing miracle wins as well. So it was always glad to be part of that and to collaborate with you. And here we are many years later, over a decade later, collaborating on a different level. So it's awesome.
And film's the greatest thing ever invented, Norb. I mean, to me, it's the greatest thing ever invented for sports from a standpoint of, there's so much you can learn and evaluate from it. And I think for fans, the NFL's done a really good job the last couple of years of giving the fans a very up close and personal opportunity to see things. And I know back when we were first starting, people had no idea how much took place on the sidelines until you and your business partner Mike started bringing some extra headsets for at least my family to listen. I remember them going from, man, you don't say anything down the sidelines, how can you be tight after the game, to, man, you never shut up, once they had a chance to listen to the headsets and what goes on. So I think now the NFL has ground footage and sky cams, all these other things. It's really neat for the fans. And as a final piece, I don't come onto any of these shows without tapping into one of the resources that I have, of many, many fun resources I was able to tap into over the years. So I never come into this dry. I don't come into this thinking I'm the know-it-all or anything like that, or I'm some sort of expert. This is more to me an educational opportunity for me, first of all, and then I just bring what I learned to you guys as fans. So it's, I'm looking at this from an open perspective, and then I create my opinions by trying not to be too opinionated on this show. I save that for the round table.
Yeah, absolutely. So just so you guys kind of know what the format is for this show today. So we'll talk a little bit about just this whole topic from a bird's eye view. Why are we even talking about Shaquill Griffin? Why Richard Sherman? And then we'll jump into Coach Marsh has selected some plays of both these players, and he'll do his coach's breakdown, analyze the film, and kind of talk about the pros and the cons of these guys, and at the end have his own sort of take on what he thinks of these players. So that's what the plan is today. We have not discussed this in advance. I don't know what plays he has selected. We do this show somewhat spontaneously in the sense that I go into it really only just a topic at hand and knowing that that's what we're going to talk about, but I don't know where he's going with things. So a lot of times I discover things I have no idea he's even thinking about. So it's a discovery for me as well, because these topics are things that we're all wondering about. What's going to happen with the Seahawks? What moves will they make? And they only have so much money to go around, so much cap space to allow for, and it makes for some very crucial decision making. Every single one of them is important. So this is one of the most talked about ones, being that Shaquill Griffin is at the end of his contract, and Seahawks have to decide: do they pay him the money to keep him around, or do they move on from him? And how does Richard Sherman, fit into this equation? So I wanted to start first by just kind of throwing this in there before we start our debate. Is that a few days ago I put a poll on my channel and just asked, should the Seahawks bring back Richard Sherman? I didn't ask it as, should the Seahawks choose between Richard Sherman and Shaquill Griffin, which would you choose? I just said, should they bring him back? And 71% of you said yes, 29% said no. Now, that was surprisingly a lot more overwhelming of a number than I had expected. Now, if people were told you have to have only one, maybe that would have been skewed a little bit. But that's kind of what sparked this debate, because it was talked about. I threw this out there. I was surprised that the number was so high in the favor of Richard Sherman, and that's why I told Coach before we did the show, like, man, I think we need to talk about this, because clearly there's a lot more people than I expected saying we should bring Sherman back. And I don't know if that's an indication on just because they want him back and that feeling of, oh, he's back again, let's feel good about it, or is there really a feeling like, is it that they really don't think Shaquill Griffin's that good, and maybe it's time to move on from him? So, Coach Marsh, I'll bring you first here as a bird's eye view. What's your thoughts on just that debate there? Surprised by that poll, and where do you sort of see this? Even why is this even a topic of conversation, or is a worthwhile topic of conversation? What was your overall take when it comes to these two players?
Well, there's no doubt that there's the nostalgia feeling, right? And you and I talk about it all the time as products of the 80s. You know, I think the most nostalgic period of all time is anybody who was a product of the 80s. But we always go back to the glory times, right? I mean, in all aspects of life we do. So when it comes to the LOB, I think it's one of the most revered groupings in the history of the Seahawks. I mean, they will always be revered for what they did, because it was really the LOB that put us on the map. Again, when we were looking, oh, there you go. Go ahead and do what you got to do.
Oh, you can just keep talking. I turned the voice off,
right,
so you don't have to worry about being interrupted by the little nice lady.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
But while you stop, Drive Swizz says, I know this is off topic, but the Russ drama is really getting hot. We were just talking about that before we started the show, that, yes, the drama's hot. I want to stay on focus, but we may adjust some of these questions as we will be taking your calls via the Discord. So if you want to join the conversation at a certain point during the show, we will take a break to stop breaking down film and talk to you about questions you might have for the coach. So then the questions, you can go to the Discord in the description. There's also a link in the top of the chat. So go ahead and continue, Coach. If there are more super chat alerts like that, it's just going to play the little tune, but you can keep on talking. So go for it.
I love it. And I appreciate the super chat, folks that are out there, that you're always very loyal. So it's great. But the LOB was a group that we always wanted to go back to. So I think anytime we hear somebody's name that's connecting us to the glory times that we just, that we most recently had, we're always going to have an affinity to bring them back. But as I kind of mentioned last night, and I don't remember the hypothetical name I gave, I think if you replace somebody's name with just a random name and then look at the stats and look at their productivity and all those things, do we really get excited about having the player of Richard Sherman's caliber back? And again, I'm not here to say yes or no. That's just the question I think you have to ask yourself sometimes, is are we excited because it's Richard Sherman, who is part of the Seattle Seahawks glory days, or is it because you really think that his productivity right now, coming off an injury, coming back a few games, is why we're excited. So I do think it's absolutely worth the debate, part of your second part of it, because this is a big time deal. You're talking about the economic component, and I will usually talk points so that I don't get caught up in the emotion of people receiving so much money to play the game, and it's which is fine for them. So, but you put the point value on it. It's, gosh, do you franchise a guy? Do you keep him? The value of the cornerback position is such a valuable spot, as are most every position, but it's not easy to find one. And so, is Shaq the guy now that he's going into his fifth year, or is he not the guy? So I think it's fascinating that that you brought this up as a kind of a contentious point, especially given that Richard Sherman is available and the fact that he has said he's not going back. So he's going somewhere else, and he's stated how many years he's doing it. So he has a plan and a path. It's just a matter of what is that plan and path.
Yep, absolutely. No, and just everyone's got an opinion, and we won't really find out until it plays out. And when the Seahawks finally make that decision, and then once they've chosen that player, we'll know once we see their performance. But for now, we can all speculate and make our own predictions. But our show is about not just taking just random opinion, but you, Coach, get to break it down and try to take some facts and some film and look at some details to back up why you think one player versus another has the skills. So are you ready to jump into some plays here?
Yeah, we're gonna give it a try, and just so you know, the way I went at this, because there's obviously so many different ways when you're talking about a couple players and different parts of their career. At first, I started to really kind of look at it from a standpoint of Shaq now and where he is in his career versus where Richard was in his career, and then I realized it's really kind of an unfair comparison to go with because of the surroundings, the teammates, all those other things, and that it was better, and the way you kind of posed the question earlier in the week was, what is it right now? So I really converted to, how is Shaq playing? How did he play this year? And then kind of what has Richard Sherman done, really over the last year and a half, sans the injury, which we can discuss at the very end of this. So I really just kind of took both players, if they're really at their peak of where I think they can play, those are the type of plays that I chose. So I'm going to start with Shaq, and I'm going to break that down into two specific areas, and I'll play the first play. The first one is things that I think he did, and the other ones are things that I think were based on the coverage and the scheme, because that was a big component of what I talked about last night with regards to Richard Sherman, is are we bringing him back into a scheme that wasn't the same as what he played before? Does that impact our decision-making here? So we're going to start off with Shaq and his specific play based on how he plays the game, I think, at his best.
All right. Let's do it.
All right. So with that, we're going to go into our view here. And for those of you who are new to the show, I'm not going to be doing a lot of telestrating, so to speak. That's why I just kind of have the blown up cursor here, and I just kind of circle and move things around down the road. We have some neat things coming down the pike that Norb and I are really excited to do. But for now, this is kind of the simple way I do it, and I'll usually just kind of focus things out. I'll play a play once. I try to remember to play it once, and then I'll go back and break it down for a little bit. So there's going to be 3 or 4 plays here that are basically against, top tier receivers. So you got Thielen from Minnesota and one of the receivers from Dallas, and I try not to stay away from names. So we're just going to look here at the bottom of the screen. That's where our focus is, watching Shaq, and he's in kind of that more tight bump and run or play up tight coverage. So I'm just going to let the play run so we can see basically what's happening here. Okay, and he had outside leverage, deep play, down the sideline, taken care of. So now let's come back and check the play out from the get-go. Now, one of the things I love when Shaq is, or when I think Shaq is at his best or playing at his optimal position, is when he is able to be in the grill of the guy in front of him. And it's not so much the old, prehistoric days where, Lester Hayes would come up against Steve Largent and really ride him and jam him. But when he can be, in that one-on-one basketball matchup, where he can get squatted down, he's in an ISO position and he's able to play him. He does a very, very solid job of what he needs to do. Now, you can see he's getting coached up. Now, for a guy who's in his 4th year, things are happening where they're making, this is late in the game, and they're making decisions on where do they want him to align. He's being coached up, which is a rare thing to see in the NFL. If you just look at his head, he's pointing, he got the correct call. So he adjusted to an outside shade because they assumed something was coming to the inside, and they were right. So you always want your corner to be able to play in that outside position because it allows him to see the football better if you have inside help over the top. But this isn't a scheme breakdown. This is a player breakdown. So here's what I like here. As he plays over the top, this is going to be a little a la Richard Sherman, going back to Deion Sanders. There's a kind of a trail that is the DB who likes to play the catch-up game, sometimes on purpose. Norb, do you know what 40 time he ran? What Shaq's 40 time was?
Pretty fast. Wasn't he like a 4.2 or 4.3? I don't remember.
4.38. 4.38.
We're going to
be 4.3 exactly. That. Richard Sherman was a 4.6. So that's why sometimes I look at those things and think, sometimes 40 times can be a little overrated. They're great for the combine and stuff for certain positions. How well does the guy play? So there you can kind of see it from there. But here's where I'm going to take us to a little better spot. And it's actually we're going to go to right here. Now, here's what I like on this. Okay, you're going to see him doing a great job as he comes down the line as he's coming down the field. He is right there in his grill. He's got a lower hat level, but here's the best part where it's frozen right here. Anytime you can get any sort of contact, you want to be able to be in the radar of the receiver. And by being in the radar, what we used to tell our DBs was make sure you get that arm that can loop around like you'd see a radar detecting planes, and get that arm out there and always maintain contact. Keep that guy in the radar screen. I mean, you have to maintain contact with him on either side. If he's on your inside, if he's on your outside, it doesn't matter. But get that contact leverage. That way, when you start to look back at the ball, if that guy breaks away from your arm contact, he's gone. And Shaq does a great job when he's in close, tight coverage of doing this. And anybody who's done any sort of sports knows when you're running, you don't want some guy tugging at your arm, grabbing at your arm. But he does it for multiple strides here, which is fantastic, the way he's doing this. So it allows him to be in a spot where, as the play's developing, boom, he's right in his arm. Now, as he's looking back, he's tapping him, he's touching him. I mean, I love it. He's doing the boxing matchup, which teams often will do in the early part of preseason. I used to do it the very first day with our DBs and wide receivers. We do all these boxing match drills just to see how you're in contact. But here's the best part that I like about Shaq. Very a la Richard Sherman years ago. And he's playing with him. Now look at how tight he is. He's closed even the gap to less than a foot on him. And now it's 2 guys going after the ball. Norb, how many times have we seen a DB who's in a matchup and just can't find the ball?
Doesn't even turn his head around sometimes.
It drives me nuts. It's crazy. Now, I didn't have enough time I had enough time, but I didn't pull out a play that I want to based on what you just said. The other thing that Shaq does, which is great, before I show you the height right here, is exactly what you said. When he's running and guys are ahead of him, he will turn his head, but he doesn't turn his head until his body touches the receiver. And by that, what I mean is, when the receiver's running down the field, oftentimes you'll see a DB chasing that guy, and then he turns to look for the ball, and either the receiver cuts to the outside, cuts to the inside, or keeps on running, and the separation is just too far gone because the quarterback threw it perfectly or what have you. And what you're usually teaching a DB is keep running at that receiver who's in front of you if you're trailing him until you can see his shoulder pads turned, see his chest, or see his numbers. At that point, then you can turn and find the football because that receiver is telling you the ball's coming short. If a receiver is running in full stride, there's no reason to turn around and get to the football until you come in contact with him. Shaq does a great job of that in these one-on-ones. So as we come back to this play here to finish it out, the high point, vertical, again, this is where he's using the 4.38 speed to battle with a guy, and then he gives him the clothesline pin. It's a great play. It's just a great play. So that was the first one that I wanted
Hey, Coach, I want to ask you a question about that.
Yeah.
So, you're talking about the hand fighting and the kind of keeping a hand on him. Yeah. So I know the rule is you're not supposed to touch a receiver after 5 yards. So where's the line that referees call between? Because we see it all the time. Like Sherman was notorious for it, like always touching the receiver. And I'm thinking, I don't know, is that not illegal contact? Technically, he's outside the 5 yard buffer mark. Where do they, in general, from your perception, where do referees draw that line between they're allowing that and where they go, okay, that's too much, you're grabbing him too much?
Yeah, so the typical thing they're looking for is he impeding the runner's ability to run his route, and is he, after 5 yards, and is he impeding the receiver's ability to catch the football? That impeding word, which is the kind of the word that they go to try to figure things out. So I'm playing this slow speed, so frame by frame, it looks like there's just a lot of action that's taking place, which there is. But let me play the same angle at full speed, and what you can determine is is he really impeding? Is there enough there that a referee can call that he's impeding his progress, to where when I come back to slow frame, of course it looks like he's got a tap there, he's in his chest, he's on his elbow, he's pulled his arm back, he's in his bicep back to the elbow. What's great here also, I meant to point out earlier, even his fingers. Like you want guys to have, they say guys have soft hands as receivers and DBs. None of them have soft hands. They have claws. The soft hand part is the pad of your hand. But if you got really strong claws, this is what you're doing. I mean, he's just clawing him up. He's battling with him, doing all those things. So again, at slow speed, it looks like a battle, but at the regular speed, as you can see, he's not impeding his chance. And then he's going up after the butts. It's a good battle for the ball.
Yeah, nice play there.
So I really like that. For that first play there is one that I think, again, we're looking at a guy. Does he have the ability to do stuff? And I'm going to show kind of another play that's kind of similar to what that.
Let me quickly acknowledge one of the super chats from our filmmaker, songwriter, friend Anthony D, NORBFAM member as well. He says, "Hey Norb, how's it going? Hope you're doing okay. FYI, I'm saving up to buy music recording equipment and leave my script aside. Music first. Bill, I have that C sign. So I must have that same Seahawk logo."
I don't have it turned on tonight. Usually I have it turned on, but I had to give it a little rest.
Yeah,
known as get more AAA batteries.
There's always something. Got to get those batteries.
There was something
changed.
about the extended remix version of last night's show that I could notice as the night went on. My Seahawks light started it was like the Seahawks season. It started off really bright.
It started setting.
It started fading down a little bit. So
that was a long epic show. We're going to try not to go that epic long. My goal is to never exceed the length of the movie Braveheart. So we're going to try to keep this within a decent amount of time because I know the family would appreciate that as well too. So, all right, well, let's go to the next play, Coach. I'm excited to see what you got next.
Okay, so now what we're going to be looking at is, again, looking at it from different standpoints. We just saw that jam coverage. Yeah, and we're going to have a couple from the same game because, again, I tried to look at it from kind of let's match up against receivers that are doing multiple things in a game that was tight, games that matter. So I add a little bit of that to my research, so I'm not just randomly picking out plays. I probably look too far into this type of stuff. But now he's up top, matchup, same matchup that we're looking at here. But now the difference is, and this is where we're going to kind of determine where I want you as fans to watch and determine, is this more about scheme or is this more about how he's playing, his ability to play the game. So now he's walked off. He started off up close. He's walked off. You can tell that they're definitely in a man situation because of the way that they're kind of floating out there, at least at the start of the play. But now as the route goes, I'm going to let the play continue now that you know who you're watching. Let me take it back and watch it one more time. Just watch the receiver's route so you have a good understanding of what he's running, because this is a pretty solid route that he runs. And then we'll look at the coverage out here. So a little short motion to get him moving. Now he's reset. That gives him some leverage. Out step, boom, right back to the inside. Okay, underneath. Now, this last time to play at regular speed before I break it down a little bit, I want you to just kind of watch this underneath coverage that takes place. Kind of determining whether it's man or zone, because obviously he's playing off quite a bit. They're inside the 20-yard line. So again, we're determining, are we helping our guy out or not helping our guy out, or is it the DB's responsibility here? Just from a scheme standpoint, real quick before we break it down. So lots of space up in this area, which to me tells me this is a responsibility of the DB. So now let's look at what Shaq does on this play. As he's bailing out, he obviously understands he may have some underneath coverage, but here's the part that I want us to look closely at. Sorry, my fault. It's right here. When we get this little outbreaking move, it's how quickly does a DB, and I know we're wide panned, how quickly can a DB get his feet settled underneath him, and does he have those 6-inch power steps that you hear me talk about all the time on other shows that every single position has at some point? O-linemen have it right at the very beginning. Linebackers have it at the beginning. DBs usually have it back when they're breaking out of the break of the wide receiver. So as the wide receiver's breaking, can they settle their feet, get those 6-inch power steps going, or do a quick turn as we talk about when they're reverse pivoting, and get themselves settled? Because this is a great route that's being run where he's doing a little outside move before he comes back to the inside. And what we're going to get here is a little bit of the bunny hop. Now, again, I'm looking at 4th-year DB, so he's not a new guy. You can see right here that double hop to get planted. I'm not going to tell you if that's good or bad yet. You determine based on the cushions being broken down, and now at this point, they're at roughly 7 yards of separation. Ball hasn't been thrown. Okay, as ball gets ready to be thrown, this is where you start to judge things. So for me as a coach, I look at this from the standpoint that the moment the quarterback throws the ball, now is where I start looking at what is taking place. This is how I can determine whether a DB is doing his job or not. The cushion was approximately 7 yards before the throw, 4 yards at the moment of throw. Is he in the right position to be able to make something happen? Now, if the ball is thrown perfect, I don't know, Norb, what do you think? Does he catch it and walk right in? And this is the determining factor on this play for Shaq.
If it's thrown perfectly, it's going to be close. But yeah, he's got at least to the 1 yard line, maybe gets in if it's a perfectly thrown ball in stride.
Yeah, and obviously you got other Seahawks here, but again, I'm just determining on this little spot right here. Does he have it or doesn't he have it? Not so bad. But what I'm going to give Shaq the credit for here is the fact that the moment that the outside break goes, this is a very hard route to defend because he gives an outside move, comes back in. But the quickness, and here's the best spot right here. He levels his feet at that spot, but his very next step is perfectly angled to the wide receiver's angle, which allows him to quickly determine where he needs to go from there, because he doesn't know if the wide receiver is going to run this hard slant here. Maybe he's running the fake out and just coming hard square across the middle. There's multiple directions he can go from here. So to level out perfectly with his angle before he takes his next step, and then once he gets here, immediately you could tell that the angle's closing down. And those are the three progressions you want to see out of a DB. The moment that the ball's being released and he's breaking on a receiver that's in front of him is, did he square? Did he angle set, which he did? And then was his next stride shortening or closing down the gap? So in the game, we see this, long completion and go, how can if they're at the 18-yard line, we just gave up a 16-yard reception. Well, no help underneath. He was obviously put in a position of, we want you to bail at the snap. So he's up close a little bit. Now he's walking backwards. He's not doing that on his own, Norb. He's been told to do that based on that defense. So whatever defense they called in the huddle, that's his responsibility. So to me, I'm looking at it and going, okay, Shaq's doing his thing, but you also got a coach who says on 3rd down and 8 inside the 20, we're going to have our corner bail on their top wide receiver and let their top wide receiver do whatever he wants, but we're not going to let that top wide receiver run by us, even though Shaq's made a good play against him. Thielen may be coming back to make some things happen. This is just before I think he got concussed. So there's that play. You have to determine whether Shaq's the franchise tag guy on that one. So I'm going to cheat and say yes, he is. I'm going to say this is a responsibility of coverage. This is defensive coach saying we're going to run a defense that's not going to help Shaq become a better DB in this position. Shaq did his job. If you put this play anywhere on the field, Shaq did what he's supposed to do.
So I know there was Chef Jack Attack just now back in the show doing his super chat thing. He says, hey guys, Chef Jack Attack's always good to have you on here, man. So Coach Marsh, what you're saying is that if you're grading that play and you're writing your notes about the performances of your DBs, you look at that one, even though it was on paper, it was like, oh man, he gave up a 16-yard pass play for a first down to make it 1st and goal. His technique-wise and what he did given the scheme, he actually played it well. You give him positive marks on that.
Yeah, I would give him if you're just going a plus 0 minus type of deal, or plus even minus type of deal, which, at NFL level, you're going, the grades are higher, much higher, lower and stuff. But if I'm just going that plus equal minus deal, I'm giving anywhere from equal to plus to the plus sign, just from a standpoint, again, if I move that anywhere in the field against their top receiver, he's bailing out. He kept the receiver in front of him. He made the turn, closed down the gap. That's a tough one to defend if you don't have any help underneath. And again, I struggle with the fact that Shaq was put in a position inside the 18-yard line to bail out on that. Middle of the field, those other guys are going to help out a little bit more. But here you got guys blitzing. There's other things taking place, and this is back when our defense was giving up a lot of stuff, which is why the very next play, which I'm just going to kind of briskly run through, you're going to see the same type of deal. And the flip side, though, is he gets credit for tackles, which is why tackles sometimes can be misnomers too, right? In this game, he got credited for 3 tackles where all he had to do was run up and tap the guy on the ground.
Right.
But he's an outstanding tackler, which is an area that I will cover at the end. There's a couple kind of philosophical things I'll talk about, but I want to kind of focus on coverage. Okay. So let me bounce into this next one right here, which is right here. Now, just seeing the play, you can see right there. I'm just going to let the play run a couple times here. Over and over, like we do in film sessions where we just have the clicker and the players get so tired of it. I don't want to see that play 50,000 times. Well, we're going to run it 50,000 times. What's he supposed to do here? But you know what? They're not yelling it in the stands this year. But in other years, everybody would be yelling it at Shaq. Like, he's awful. Where is he? It's their top guy. Well, they have him playing 7 yards off. They run a slant. There's no help underneath. Kind of no man's land right here with the inside help. So nobody's eating up the slant. And so his job is to make sure he gets there, and he gets credited for the tackle. But this is one I'm not going to break this one down. It's more just showing, again, what a player experiences, in a game. Now, this one we are going to look at, because this one is a definite tough determination on, is it coverage or is it Shaq? Like this to me was one of the more enjoyable ones to watch and look at. So, and Norb, you let me know when you want to take the break to do any phone calls or anything like that.
Oh, yeah. So, how many? Let's see. We've done how many plays now? 3 plays? We've
done 3, and I have a set of 7. So, but a couple of them are as quick as that last one.
How about we do it after? We'll take a break and take some calls after this play.
Sure. Sounds great. All right. So, here's what we have. We're going to let you see the play. Now, we're up top here. Again, we're going against Thielen, so good matchup that's taking place. Let's just watch the play, see what happens. Now, again, do we get frustrated? Yeah, maybe. And I'm going to show you some really neat things that Shaq does here in a minute. So now let's go back to the beginning of this play. Okay, you have a little bit of an action that's taking place in the backfield, but not enough to fool anybody. I mean, that's one of those we call them ghost action plays where, who are we fooling on that thing?
Right.
Like, I hope to goodness our linebackers aren't jumping on that one. But here's the thing. Our DB, who's focusing on this potential block, he goes from outflanking the wide receiver. Remember, I talk about all the time, like you want to be outflanking the opponent on defense. On defense, as a DB, you want to outflank your guy. As an outside linebacker, you want to outflank. As a defensive end, if you're on the edge, outflank. And by outflank, what I mean is keep that outside arm free, which usually is a term you talk about with the linebackers. Keep your outside arm free, funnel everything back to the inside. D ends, if you got the edge, funnel to the inside. DB secondary corners, you have the force, or secondary force as we often call it, force it back to the inside. Well, he gets caught up inside here, levels the feet, but now it becomes it's a battle of wills. So the tough part, though, is the coverage, the type of coverage I like to see. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of space against a good wide receiver inside the 20-yard line, let alone inside the 5-yard line. So that being said, that's the coverage side of it. Let's look at what he does from a coverage standpoint. Okay, he's gone from outside leverage to inside leverage, so now he's in a negative. If I'm scoring right now, he's negative. But immediately gets squared up because of the fact that he knows how to square his feet. You can just tell that his footwork is great. Now, Norb, do you know who the real DB coach is for the Seattle Seahawks? If we're really going to say who the DB coach is? Who's the real DB coach? There's one guy who can choose one. He can choose all the different sections, but there's one section he's definitely the best at.
Pete Carroll?
That would be Pete Carroll. And just know that all my questions are rhetorical, so I know if you don't answer it, I will give you the answer. Pete Carroll, he made his claim based as a DB coach. That's how he worked his way up the ranks. And then he had kind of a fall, and then he went to USC, did his thing. But DBs is where he spends his time. When I had a chance to go to practices, as a guest of Sherman's, which was phenomenal experience, of course I'm watching what Pete Carroll does, and he's bouncing around to his other. But DBs is where he likes to go hang out. So he's coaching those guys and making sure the DBs coach them up. So they're getting a lot of time, and footwork is what they're constantly working on. So you get the squared up feet. So now it's a good battle. The deal is, because he lost that inside leverage, he was never able to stay over the top of him. This is the most indefendable or undefendable or uber undefendable, whatever word you want to use, whatever prefix you want to use, pass in football. The deep out is the most difficult to defend. This is the second most difficult to defend. The quarterback who has sprinted out and is short in the field, and a receiver who's done anything and got outside leverage and is able to sprint to the corner. And what's great about the route is instead of, he gets it 3 yards deep, and instead of lateral or deep, he's smart enough to work his way back to the forward pylon that nothing. So if I'm going to grade this one, I have to say, Shaq, this one, I'm giving you the minus on this one. Okay. Now, again, I'm picking out a few plays out of 100 plays that he played in, but I just wanted to be able to see that his footwork is tremendous. He's great with the footwork, which is the trend that we're seeing, but we're also seeing that there's some times where there's some lapses, and these were the things that in year 4 with Richard Sherman, while he was a 4.6 40 guy, his mentality was about schemes and studying film and all that. And I'm not saying he's not watching film, but Richard Sherman, he would say it all the time. Like, I make up for my 4.6 40 time because I will watch more film than the guy I'm guarding. He would constantly say things like that. So he would make up for it with those type of intangibles. Shaq's going to make up for it with his skills and ability, but this one, he didn't know that play was going to come back to the outside, so he loses out on that play. So that one's a little bit more difficult from a standpoint of the very beginning. It's a little bit of scheme because he's playing 5 yards off. So, I mean, anybody you match up with. Norb, if you and I go one-on-one in anywhere, basketball, soccer, football, and you have 5 yards of cushion and we have 15 yards of field to play with there, any route you run in a one-on-one, you're probably going to get open. I mean, if you're,
And that was one of the things that drove me crazy. And I would get on Trey Flowers so many times when he was out there because it seemed like he constantly had this 10-yard cushion on the receiver, and that receiver would just do a little quick stop and right there, and he would be wide open or do a slant, and he's got nowhere to be found. So I don't know if that's, again, is it a question of, is that the way they schemed it, or is that the way he's playing, or is that the way they schemed it because they feel that's his best way to play it? But I've always felt like I'd like to see more press coverage. I think that's what you're kind of saying there too. That's what Richard Sherman was so good at. And in that first play you had Shaquill Griffin defending against Adam Thielen up close. I've always felt like that would be a better way to go. And of course, if they get burned at the line of scrimmage, they could be gone down the field in their home run. But I always feel like that would be, I'd like to see them get aggressive and at least impede their pattern instead of watching these LA Rams receivers just run all over the place without even getting touched. That's what would drive me crazy.
And that's why. So, and before you go to break, I'm going to just show 2 plays. I'm just going to show them. I'm not even going to break them down because I just wanted to see I wanted you to see a quick pattern of this. These are almost in a sequence of plays, and you're going to see where coverage, the scheme, is what hurt Shaq and hurt us because we were so into let's not give up these deep balls, even though we were giving up deep balls, losing 35 points because teams were just figuring out how to just nickel and dime us, do all these other things. So let me just show you this real quick. This is again, same matchup battle. Just simply watch the play. Okay, right up top, there's so much cushion there, and you can tell that he's so worried about getting beat deep on this that he's in a spot where even on the outbreaking route, just as real quick, on the outbreaking route, he still is going to take a quick step backwards out of fear that there might be an out and up coming. So just watch just watch Shaq on this real quick as this, just a 15-yard out route, which is the toughest route to throw in football. But watch what Shaq does here. Backs up, goes out, backs up a little bit, and then goes out again. Like, though there might have been something coming, even though he had 7-8 yards of cushion when he's getting ready to do that up route. And then here was the kind of the last one of this little coverage piece. You know, here again, he starts up tight, which is great, but then he bails out, and you're going to get a slant route, and there you go, first down. Right? I mean, it's just, there was so much of that took place that really hurt him. Now, when we come back from the break, I'm going to talk about and show some of the times, when he's able to play jam and play it tight, what this kid's able to do, because it's totally different. And then I'll show you a little bit of Richard Sherman. So.
All right. So, what you're saying there is when you're talking about that big gap, that's not necessarily the player saying, I'm afraid I'm going to get burned, I'm going to back off. That's more of a scheme that was predetermined by the defensive coordinator of where they should be. I guess, what is your take on it?
I tell you what, because if any DB is afraid, DBs they're the cockiest guys around. I mean, they just are by nature, even when they're humble. Even if they're as humble as they seem to be in their minds, you have to be cocky to play the equivalent of you on the other side, right? Like, everybody has their equivalent. Linebackers, the running backs, O-line, the D-line, all those things. You have to have that same mentality. He's a confident guy. He's a 4.38 40 guy. So at some point in the game, coaches are putting in schemes, or not in the game, but as they're preparing, they have all these different schemes, and now they're saying, hey, because we're getting deep, because of their good receiver, or whatever the reason, we're going to keep bailing guys and playing deep thirds, deep quarters, all this other stuff. What's the purpose of that? Like, let's take our best corner and just get in their grill, and okay, if they beat us, all right, but they were already beating us. They put up 30-plus points. We were giving up 30-plus points a game. So, again, my mentality is to be aggressive. If we're going to blitz and we're going to do these, like, let's blitz, be aggressive, send Adams, send Wagner, and let our corners jam. And if we get beat that way, and let a free safety do his thing, other than bail, let's not just bail out and do the
coverage. Give them 10 yards, 15 yards a pop, slowly dying by paper cuts down the.
But I'll show you. I'm going to show you a couple of things afterwards that. Again, just to show, because I don't want people to think that I'm just showing these other coverage pieces. I want you to see what Shaq can do if we go to the areas that we need to go to, that I think. But again, we have the same coordinator coming back, and some of the stuff I'm going to show you was during the early part of the season. So it's more about how well Shaq played in spite of the defense that was being called at the time. So just to give you a fair balance of how to judge this.
All right. Well, this is the time when we want to hear from you guys. So we got a couple of people already in the Discord standing by. So we're going to go to Sky High Aviation, a regular of the show. Sky High Aviation, what you got? Welcome to the show. And what do you got for Coach Marsh today?
Well, first of all, can you guys hear me? You guys hear me good
at all? Loud and clear. Loud and clear.
Okay. So I do have some questions about Shaquill Griffin and his effectiveness. And I know it hasn't been much. We haven't seen much of it this year, but I haven't seen the ball being thrown deep against Shaquill Griffin that much this year. And normally he's been beat on those little short out routes that you guys were talking about, but very few times have I seen quarterbacks try and actually test him deep at all. And I'm going to be honest. I think he's a really good, really better DB when you throw the ball deep to him. I mean, a couple of his good interceptions actually came off of off deep passes. His first career interception came off a deep pass, and I think that's kind of where his strength is. Besides his biggest strength, which is tackling, which I mentioned in the coaches roundtable last week. I mentioned the Seahawks corners love to tackle. That's what makes them so good. Is the tackling has been, go up. They're not afraid. They love to tackle. So I think his second biggest strength would be the deep ball defense, and we haven't seen many quarterbacks test him deep, but I think that he'd really excel. He's really excelled in that area, and if he can get that short game down, kind of like what Sherman did, be able to press his defender, be able to stay with him throughout the whole time, be able to have that trust to be able to go in man when you need to. And I think it's just a matter of maybe this year, he takes that step where, Ken Norton's like, hey, Now I know I can trust you to go put in man instead of just keeping you out in the zone or keeping you out bouncing back, so that way we keep protected deep. I think it's kind of, even though this is his contract year, I think the next year is going to be really important to him wherever he ends up. If he ends up on the Seahawks, that he develops that, kind of Richard Sherman, Darrelle Revis-esque type tape where he's just one-on-one, no matter what route, no matter what combo they have out there with the receiver. He's just one-on-one out there with him, and if you throw to him, he's going to be all over him, be able to bat that ball down or pick it off.
So, in other words, it sounds like you are in favor of re-signing him. He should be back again with the Seahawks with a new contract.
He should be back with the Seahawks, depending on what happens and if cap casualties do happen or if a certain player gets cut. I do see him getting paid. I actually see his brother influencing this decision, and let's just say his brother decides to stay with the Seahawks for a $700,000 deal. That's going to pay him $700,000 for 1 year. It's a 1 year deal. And, he's like, well, obviously you want to go play with your brother because it's your dream, right? So let's just say that I think the brother factor may kind of convince Shaquill Griffin to maybe take a bit less money if you think about it. He's like, dude, we can be on the same team. Just take what they're offering. The benefits are greater if we're together and not split apart. So, it's kind of like that personal side where, the feelings get the best. Instead of going with your gut, you go with your heart, right? So maybe if his brother gets signed to the Seahawks back first, I'd say the chances actually increase, definitely, because first is his brother, but second, he maybe actually be willing to take a bit under from what he actually deserves. And like, maybe I don't deserve all this. I do deserve this, but maybe I shouldn't take all that money. Maybe I should take what they're offering me, because first I get to play with my brother, and second, I keep my starting job. Third, I still get a pay raise, right? So that's kind of what I'm looking at a standpoint is. And if we want to go sign Richard Sherman too, that's great. Go sign him too. I'm in favor with signing both of those dudes. Like, I'm fine with that. Have Sherman compete.
We're living the dream. We're living the dream.
We re-signed Brandon Browner a couple years ago, and he didn't make the final roster. I know Sherman will make the final roster, but we re-signed Browner. We put him at safety and everything. I got so excited, and I was like, he's going to play corner. He's going to start for us. The original LOB is going to be back. No hate to Byron Maxwell, because he ended up coming back as well, and he's one of my favorites. But he ended up getting cut. But I don't think it's going to be the same. If we're able to bring back both of those guys, I think really Shaq Griffin could take some of that mentorship and kind of soak it in, and that'll also help with his development if he does come to the Seahawks.
You bring up the interesting money component to this whole thing, and the fact that Shaquille has his brother Shaquem there. Shaquem signed with the Seahawks a year later, didn't he? So he's not at the same contract negotiation point as Shaquille is. Shaquille is at his free agency period. Shaquem's got 1 more year. But it's an interesting thought that if they re-signed, let's say they did a deal with Shaquem now, just to sort of tell his brother Shaquille, hey, we're going to get Shaquem locked in now. So would that influence them? Are they a 2-for-1 package? I mean, they definitely act like they are, the way that they engage each other on the field. They're like one unit, the way that those guys, the way they bond before the game, celebrating during the game, off the field, they're constantly together. That's an interesting play, that if they try to get through the brother to get to Shaquille, could they possibly get him to sign if they had him locked up? I don't know. What do you think, Coach? He threw out a lot of things out there. A lot of things that were like, get them both? Well, boy, but if the money's right, I guess it's a possibility. But I don't know. What do you think? There's lots to digest.
I think what's interesting is that it's just such a different world, right? I mean, pro sports is just a different world. And we want to believe that people think like we would. Right, like I want to play with my brother, and you should want to play with your brother because I want to play with my brother. Why wouldn't he want to play with his brother? And so many people I've talked to this week, relating to this specific piece, have brought that exact thing up. So it's not like Sky Aviation's, just randomly mentioning something here. He's talking about something that so many people are thinking that, gosh, these brothers they're going to want to play together. Well, the fact is they have been together for the last few years, and there comes a point I think in people's lives. And again, I'm just giving both sides. I think at first that was the thing. Like, man, how awesome is this? And you saw the emotions when we drafted, his brother and stuff. It was really neat to see. But then there's come a point where it's like, all right, it's like guys that go to college together. All right, we've been to college for a few years now, and yeah, we're brothers, we're hanging out. Like now I kind of want to go try something a little different and see what I can do without you. Like I don't want you coming over to my house all the time, hanging out with me all the time. Again, we don't know their personal lives, and they're obviously very, very tight. I mean, they're very, very close. Again,
but they're different. But they're very different in terms of their value on the team.
Yes.
You can't even compare them. One guy's a special teams guy. The other guy is the starter at left corner. That's very different. You can't really. Yeah, you can't.
If you flop it, I think it's a much easier sell. You flop the situation, and it's Shaquill saying, "Hey, come on, sign at the discount. And I'll take care of you. We want to play together." I can see that happening. Again, we go back to, is Shaquill the one who's going to be at the table talking, or is it going to be his agent at the table talking? Well, we know who it's going to be. So while you like to think that Shaquill's going to make his choice, there's still going to be a business decision that gets made with these guys, and they're taking care of their families because it takes a lot of points to take care of your family for 18 generations to come. So and make it happen. Like I love these guys. I'm a huge fan of both of them, but I think it's a really tough call. To think that once they're 4 or 5 years in, that family dynamic, it's very cool, but I don't think it's as strong as we want it to be. Like we want it to be special because we want every reason for Seahawks to stay here. So that's the reason that they should want to stay here.
All right. And Cameron Hughes, who has done many of the trivia contests for my roundtable show, he says in the chat, Shaquille isn't going to convince Shaquille to take $8 million less. I'm taking $15 million over playing with my brother, just saying. And I think that's the harsh reality when it comes down to business. It's like, I love your brother, man, but $8 billion is $8 million more. More important than being on the same team with you. That may be the harsh reality that we're going to face here. And Shaquille doesn't have a whole lot of leverage like Shaquille does, because Shaquille, he's going to have to fight to find a spot. If he doesn't play for the Seahawks, what other team's going to pick him up? So he's definitely hanging on. He'll be lucky if he continues playing with his brother. So,
and part of that is, hey, I'm looking to take care of you. I mean, if these guys are genuinely looking to take care of their family, as they like to say, that is part of the equation, right? Like, hey, if I can go make more money knowing that you're on the minimum, meaning you're barely making the team right now, that you could be released any time, as all these guys can, but he's a lot closer to be released, then why wouldn't a brother consider making more money so that he could help his younger brother down the road if that I'm taking care of my family component is part of it?
Right.
In the bit from a business standpoint. So
yeah, for sure. All right, let's take another call from John Rick 453. John Rick 453, you're on the air with Coach Marsh and NorbCam. What's on your mind?
Hello. In my opinion, I think we should re-sign Shaquill Griffin and not go for Richard Sherman because, in my opinion, he had a really good year this year. He had 3 picks. He had 63 tackles combined. And Richard Sherman, he hasn't had 3 or more picks since 2016. Richard Sherman is older. Shaquill Griffin, I think, he may not be, or he may or may not be better than Richard, but Richard is getting old, and I think you'd rather have a person who's younger and can develop more than Richard Sherman than a person that's older and that can regress a lot more. So that's why, in my opinion, I think we should re-sign Shaquill and not go for Richard Sherman.
And I'm going to say that's an outstanding point that you made there. So I'm not going to kind of shoot bullets in it, as they say, but I'm going to kind of counter it with, in this day and age of we try to win right now, like how you have to do what have you done for me lately, and who gives you the best chance to win right now, this year, this season. A lot of people aren't patient enough for people to develop. Now, again, I'm not saying not to go for the younger guy. I would always say if all things are equal, choose the younger guy, right? Because you're probably going to get more longevity out of him. But obviously, nothing's guaranteed. So your point, it's outstanding. But I think you also have to balance it with the other side, which is, hey, we're trying to win this year. All Seattle fans care about is winning this year, win the Super Bowl this year. And we always say, well, we're willing to risk everything else after that. But I remember people saying that just before we won our Super Bowl a few years back, like, hey, if we can win a Super Bowl, who cares what happens after that? And then Norb made a video like 3 years after we had won that Super Bowl of just how devastating the years are becoming as we go further and further down the line from that Super Bowl. So we'll get back there, Norb. I just hope it's soon.
Yeah, well, with all the stuff happening in the press and the Russell Wilson rumors and news flying around, the urgency to win sooner than later definitely is on the forefront and on the fingertips and on the tips of the tongues of everybody talking Seahawks football right now. But good point there, John Rick. And it's a good transition to talk about. I know Richard Sherman's coming up in some of these clips here. So, Coach Marsh, I think we're ready to move on to part 2 of the diagnosis. Actually, before we do that, I did want to throw this one video out here. I introduced it yesterday during the roundtable, but I want to do a little public service announcement as I did a little help for charity yesterday, and did what's called the polar plunge, which means crazily jumping into very cold water for a good cause. And in this case, it was for the Special Olympics of Washington. And this is a little video of what I did yesterday to help them early in the morning down at the Space Needle yesterday. Go check it out. Hey, what's up, guys? This is NorbCam coming at you on this beautiful, cold morning here at the Seattle Center at the base of the Space Needle. I'm here with Ted and Jake over here. And we are going to be jumping into that cold fountain over there to benefit the Special Olympics of Washington. Let's do it. Let's go! Oh, good Lord! Oh, good Lord! Oh! Try to bring it! 3, 2, 1! Hey, get this! Get this, man! 3, 2, 1! I'll wake you up in the morning. Again, check out Special Olympics of Washington 2021. Donate, help. It's a good cause. Love you guys. Go to Special Olympics and go Hawks. There we go. So that's how I spent my morning yesterday in that frigid cold water. Luckily, it was only for a few seconds, but they initially told me, you just have to stand in the fountain and then they're just going to dunk you with some water. You don't have to go all the way in. But after we did it, I was like, man, I'm already here. I'm already wet. Let's just go all the way in. So that's why I decided to plunge all the way. And it was fun. So if you guys want to check out the link for the fundraiser, I have it tagged at the top of the chat. So you can check it out there. You can donate to the Special Olympics of Washington. It's also in the comments or in the description as well. So I'm sure they would appreciate your support. So there you go. So Coach Marsh, you ready to jump in like I did? Yeah. Jump into the next phase of the coach breakdown?
Crazy, man. Crazy. It's such a great cause. That's so cool that you do that. And for those of you who don't, if you're new to this channel, again, just go through the playlist that Norb has. I mean, the guy does so many great things, charitable stuff, and it's not just like for token charity. I mean, he does it because that's what he knows is right, and that's what makes it so fun to work with you. So,
thank you, man.
Very cool. I mean, I sometimes I'm at a loss for words when I watch those videos, just of the cool stuff you do. All right, so what I have is I have a few plays left, but again, sequence. So this next little sequence of plays, still looking at Shaq, looking at his strengths, like the things that would get me excited about if they said, hey, we're signing him for the max amount we can or what have you. I would immediately go to these plays and go, yep, this is what I would expect out of a fourth-year player getting ready for his fifth year. The things I would want to see, especially if they were to look at the offseason and go, okay, we need to adjust some things so that we can get the best out of Shaq. This, to me, was his best sequence during the year. This is back against Dallas. And make sure we're good there, Norb. Do you see it all good?
Yep, we're good. Looks good.
So
go for it.
This is at the end of the first half, 16-15 ball game. Up top here, you got Shaq. There's under a minute to go, so they're getting ready to drive. So just going to watch the play. Again, up top. Now you see what is considered a shortened quick bail. So he's not necessarily jamming, but he's definitely in a position of we're not going to get out of there. This I don't mind because the pre-snap look is still, so just talking scheme for the second, the pre-snap look is jam coverage. So that's going to force the receiver most likely to adjust his feet, do something a little bit different, even though right at the snap, when the snap takes place, you're going to see him quickly turn lateral. And this is a famous Richard Sherman thing. We used to see Richard Sherman sometimes would be 2 or 3 yards off and just line up sideways and just start running sideways. And the reason he's able to do this, Norb, is because he has such quick feet. And coaches are going to let him do that to where down here, you're not getting that so much. So he's giving him a little space because he knows he can catch up and he knows that he can break on the route and make things happen, but he doesn't want to get beat deep. Again, we're end of the half. So as the play goes, you can see that when the receiver's making his break, so is Shaq. And that's, again, what I'm looking for if I'm grading it out. The moment that the receiver is making his break, is the DB able to and settle your feet is a word I'm using for you as fans. We use different terms for it because you're really not wanting receivers anymore and DBs. They don't chop as much. They really are learning to use their upper body and use their arms. And there's a thing I always used to do at camp and stuff where I'd show players that your arms and your legs, they're always going to be synchronized. It's almost impossible to make them unsynchronized, but I would try to do it where I'd run slow motion with my arms, quicker with my legs. Your arms will always dictate how fast your feet go. Well, Shaq does a great job of utilizing and moving his arms at his shoulders. I'm not talking hammering at your elbows, but at his shoulders, you can see he's really driving his arms. So when receiver goes into his break, his arms are in perfect position to not fall down. You can see look at the legs. If you just took the lower half of both these guys' bodies, it is darn near mirror image.
Yeah, they're like synchronized swimmers going at it there. They're very similar.
Me, we get a few weeks down the road, we're going to be able to, really dive and enhance, zoom in tight to all these things. It's going to be awesome. But for now, we got to see it from kind of afar. But you still get the point. Great footwork. So he's right there, and he's in perfect position. And Shaq is a much better tackler than I even realized. I knew he was a decent tackler, but the more I watched him, the more I watched him break on the ball and him get to the outside. I mean, all guys are going to miss tackles at times. And unfortunately, those are the things we see. Just like I mentioned last night, how offensive linemen can pancake a defensive lineman 15 times in a game. And the only thing we remember is the one sack he gave up. Right? Well, same thing here. DB misses a tackle. We scrutinize it big time, but we fail to realize how many great tackles they make. So he makes a tackle, keeps him in bounds, which is great. So then you immediately go to the next play in the sequence that's coming up here. So here we are, next play in the sequence, and now he gets to play him tight. Well, what happens on this play? Boom.
Oh, the interception. Yeah.
Really what happens on this play is boom, right? I mean, that's what you get. You get that type of stuff, and that's how he wants to play. And what's even better is the end. It's total Richard Sherman. If you're wanting to go back to the days of LOB, that's how those guys played, right? I mean, how many times you see Richard Sherman make a play and they just kind of start running all over like, I don't know which direction the end zone is, but let's just go crazy. Guys are going to block for me. I'll get upended and flip right up, and I'm excited, and off I go. Right? Like that's the type of stuff I want to see. But based on those last two plays, you could see how in the same play from the end zone angle, when he's able to play up tight, this is what you get. Fantastic break on the ball. Now I'm going to play it one last time because I've got one more bonus angle for you on this one. I mean, you could just see because of his outstanding footwork, because he played in the jam coverage, because he's a 4.38 40 guy, that is impeccable speed when you can combine it with great footwork. There's a lot of 4.3 guys that never make it in the NFL because their footwork is just awful. They spend more time running straight to get their 40 times quicker instead of spending more time getting their 0.1, 100th of a second, 0.0 100th of a second reaction time down through their arms, their hands, the finger grip that we saw in the first play, and this stuff right here. Now, because the super slow-mo on the all-22 and the end zone isn't as great, I went to hunt this down, and I was glad I was able to find it because this is just outstanding. Just go watch it play out. Boom, right there. Almost perfect with the circle up, breaks on the ball, beats the receiver who doesn't circle up and extend his arms to save the ball flight, and just makes a great play. Now, if you put 25 in there, if that's actually 25, we're back in the LOB days, right? I mean, it is just so neat to see the way he breaks on the ball. And this is what we can get if our coordinators recognize it. And I'm not here to say I'm a better coordinator, I'm a better coach, because I'm not. If I was, I'd be out there coaching with them. But I do know great play when I see it, and I know good schemes when I see them, and I know when guys are being utilized and when they're not. Why is everybody frustrated with Russ? They're not with Russ, but with the situation, because they feel like that the offense has never really been what Russ needs. That's why I'm excited about that, but we'll jump off that exit and come back to that a little bit later. But this is what I love. I just love seeing that type of a play.
Well, that's why when you showed those two plays lined up, even though they both weren't press coverage, I like that look of press coverage. I hate seeing guys with a 10-yard cushion, unless it's like the end of the, I don't know if I ever like it, but unless it's like 3rd down and 27, right? Yeah. If it's any other time, I like to see them up close where it looks like, they're going to be in there, potentially.
Here's the second play. So I'm going to go in reverse. The second play of that series, true jam coverage. So the interception play, it's true jam coverage. And his footwork is great. And he keeps the outside leverage. Now he can play anything. If it's deep, he's going to be able to play that. And on an in-breaking route, he beats the receiver on an in-breaking route because he does what, again, going all the way back to the old school days of Deion Sanders, who was considered the first true shutdown corner. And what he figured out and learned with his great speed was, I can trail a guy, and if I understand angles and I know footwork, I can become Neon Deion. And then that passed on through generation to generation to Richard Sherman, and now to, I think, Shaq. I think he does the real deal. To where if you go back to the play right before it, just the partial bail there, it's the same, almost the same look, but like you said, at least they're up tight there, and we're letting it be athlete versus athlete. And I think Shaq is going to be 8 times out of 10 better athlete versus athlete. So let's say 14 out of 16 games. Put them against their best receiver, and let's go mano-a-mano, and let's let it happen. That's what I want to see, if I have my choice going forward. Not all the time, because you can't run that all the time, but let's do that. Let's get our best players doing their thing.
It's just frustrating to watch receivers, the other offensive receivers, with all the space, and they can just run all the slants and outs and stuff because there's nobody near them. And we'd see that over and over and over again, especially against the Rams. It felt like when they would just run that scheme to perfection. It was just like, man, somebody get in somebody's face because these guys are just too much room. But anyway,
without a doubt. And that's why, so even this next couple of things that we're showing, then we'll go to Richard Sherman. This is a play that when I found it, I was like, I got to add this to my file when I do coaches clinics, because every once in a while I'll stumble across a play and I'm like, this is such a rarity to see this type of a play. So what we're going to look at is now he's going to get beat deep. And now we get back to that situation that I talked about where if a guy's going to get beat deep and he's trailing, what does he do in that situation? Does he turn into no man's land and just get lost in the shuffle? Or does he do what is absolutely taught to every DB when you're trailing? So let's just watch the play, and if you recall what I said earlier, you'll know what he does well here. Okay, and regardless of where the ball's thrown, his job is to defend that wide receiver who's now got on the top side of him. But what did he do that was so great? It's at the last part of the play, because right here he's great, and I'm not getting the end zone. Unfortunately, you didn't capture this part of it, but you could tell that his hands are in his hip. So he's got his hands in his hip pocket, which at that point, if he wanted to turn around, great, because even if the receiver, and this is the coaching point here, if the receiver were to all of a sudden break out, if this play was inside tighter, if this play was in maybe at the bottom of the numbers and they're doing the same thing, and he's got his hands on his hip, and he turns and looks to the inside, well, then when that receiver breaks off, he feels that the receiver is no longer there. Now he's got to go find the receiver. This is what Shaq does great. He knows how to create the radar. Put the radar arm out there, keep the guy in your radar, and then when the moment the guy leaves your radar, which he does a little bit right here, instead of just turning around and finding the ball, Norb, do you recall what I said about what's going to be the key to whether the ball is going to be underthrown or not, right? If you see his numbers, if you see the front of his shoulder pads, well, we kind of see the numbers, but there's no way Shaq sees his numbers or sees his shoulder pads, and they're going so fast, he can't tell if it's inbounds or out of bounds. He can't make that judgment. So he knows, though, that I'm not quite at him. No reason for you to turn around, because my key, if I'm reading my key, well, reading my key means I know that I have to watch this wide receiver, and if he doesn't turn around, that ball's perfectly thrown. So I'm going to stay right on him till the last second, which he does. Once he realizes he's at the pylon, he reaches at his arm. You can't get any better than that. Like that is almost flawless from start to finish. A guy that's on you, you get to his hip, he then gets by you, and you just keep running to make sure that if he gets it, I'm going to chop his arm down. But if that receiver, let's say back here at 5 yards, the last part I'll say on this, let's say right here the receiver started to turn around a little bit. Well, that immediately alerts the DB that it's coming up short. And then at that point, you've got contact because he's in your radar. You turn around, you intercept the ball. And he shows that he can intercept the ball. So this is why, I would love to see us doing a little bit more of that, at least on his side of the field for what he's doing. Now, to move to the next piece, but I wanted to make sure you didn't have any comment or anything in the super chat you might be reading on that piece.
Not in terms of that particular play, so I think we can keep moving.
All right, so this is more just a quick piece just to show kind of his overall play, because I saw this type of stuff so many times. He's up top here. I'm showing just the latter part of the play. Prescott's done his drop back. Now, this was the type of defense we were playing early on. I mean, geez Louise, there are so many triangles. If you've watched me in other episodes, you've heard me talk about the triangles created by defenses. I mean, that's a huge triangle there. Triangle here, all these triangles of space. But there's an area up top where there's a triangle that is where the ball was snapped, the corner, and the sideline. And this triangle, the angles are constantly changing. But the position here is, again, it's time's running out and quarterback's trying to get out of bounds. You're in a one-on-one situation. Now, if people are going to say, well, it's the quarterback, I don't care who it is. You still have to make the tackle. And we've seen guys that go up there and just whiff or kind of shove a guy or don't really do a whole lot. Not Shaq. This told me everything I need to know about Shaq. Their quarterback making a play, boom. I mean, just a great, great, great play. Even on the quarterback out here in space, he knows there's nobody around. Closing speed, keeps the outside leverage, makes a good play on it. It's just a heady play to make that happen. So, final play for Shaq, because this now brings us back. This takes us all the way back the other direction. Now, I've shown you some equal plays, some positive plays, and now we're going to look at a play that would make you go, gosh, if we sign him for the max or we sign him for a lot or we franchise him, I remember this play. What happened on this play? Okay, so now we've got Shaq in the position I like him playing in. Okay, he's in that type play, in that type position. So now let's watch and see what happens. Uh-oh. We'll let it play again. So you can see up top, he runs the slant, and just outside, he's not even running a pivot route. Okay, and a pivot route, for those of you who might be new to the game, pivot route is basically where you hard slant to the inside, but then you do basically you reverse curl it and then go to the outside. So you go here, you reverse plant, and then you stay lateral. So if you plant it, the 4-yard line, you're going to run towards the 4-yard line. If you outside and reverse pivot or swirl or any of those other types, there's lots of different terms for it. Here, the receiver is just simply running hard slant, plant cut, go to the outside. We're playing on turf. It's a wet night, so I get it. There was we call it an ego injury. I'm not going to say that he didn't get hurt because he did plant into the ground, but this is the play where he stayed on the ground for a while. He came out of the game, but then you saw him kind of give a little smirk to his buddy on the other side as he was slowly being walked off. We used to call this the ego injury. My ego got hurt because, man, get me out of here. Like, I must have hurt something. I had to have hurt something. There's no way I got beat like that and fell down if I didn't hurt myself, right?
Right.
And again, he's a great athlete, but you heard me say it all the time, Norb, because you got to hear me say stuff. And the other running joke was a guy that would hurt his hand and he'd come limping off the field. Like, hey, your leg's not hurt. Why are you limping? I've seen it in the NFL all the time. Like, seriously, super chat people. Watch for it. Guy hurts his elbow, hurts his shoulder. Watch him get up and start limping. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what's going on here? Or a guy that misses a play and, then again, there's the guy who gets the ball, guy drops the ball and guys are doing this. They're like, yeah, I stopped him. It's like, well, you didn't really do a whole lot there, but here's this. So let's look at this play. He doesn't get beat that hard. Outside slant, he's going to be able to break on it. But then when that ball turns, this is what I get concerned about with a guy who's in his 4th year. Now, I found this early on because this was one of the first things I was looking for. But as I watched a lot of his plays, I was looking for the consistency of something like this. And to me, this is one of those, hey, you know what? Everybody has their bad play. When I was looking through the first 100 plays of his, I was like, man, this could be troublesome if I find this, because again, this is the first game I went to and ended up being some of the best plays that I found. But it was just like, oh my gosh, like that is just brutal on just a simple boom, boom route. But then I never saw anything like that from him again. Like that poor.
So that was the exception to the rule in terms of his play when it comes to that overall. That pivot play you talked about, that was the famous play, of course, in Super Bowl 49. The last touchdown scored against us. They ran that almost exact same play. I think it was Julian Edelman doing a slant and then pivot out route and scored the touchdown that put them ahead 28-24 in that game.
Very tough route to defend.
Yeah. All right, so that is the Shaquill Griffin portion of the analysis.
Yes. Yep, and I have just 3 total plays. There's not even any extras. I just have 3 on Sherman because I think the focus really needed to be on Shaq. But looking at a couple things on Richard Sherman, and then we could talk about a couple things, or people want to call. But as we go to Richard Sherman, a couple things I want to bring up. One is regards to him as a tackler, which is going to be the first thing I'm actually going to show you. Richard Sherman is one of the best tackling DBs that there's ever been. I mean, he is great at tackling, and he's still great at tackling, and he even proved it, after he came back from the calf injury. Here's a couple of my concerns, because a couple of these plays are going to be from, pre-calf injury last year, so there's obviously that age factor. And when guys injure their groin or their calf muscle, those are two things that they tend to become recurring themes. You just see it all the time where guys get hurt in those, there's like 3 or 4 areas of the body that when they get hurt at that age, it's really hard for them to come back no matter how great they are. One of the telltale factors, even though I said sometimes tackling can be overrated at times, with Richard Sherman, when you're talking solo tackles, guys are usually making the solo tackles, but for the rare time, again, they run up and tap the guy that fell down. In Richard Sherman's couple games when he returned, he went from, the first game before he got hurt, he had 6 solo tackles, 6 of them in a very tight game. I got the notes on it right here. Then in the last couple games where it was a tight win against Buffalo, or tight loss to Buffalo, tight loss to Washington, and a tight one to the Cowboys, he went 3 tackles, 1 tackle, no tackles. And then missed the final, when he played against us and such. So I look at that and go, okay, is there something that we're missing there that nobody really talked about? Yes, they held him out of the final game, but great tackler. Then he misses some games because of the calf injury. Then he comes back, not really that productive, and the production of just those 3 games went boom, boom, boom. Is this offseason going to be enough for him to be healthy, be okay? Is he going to be tentative with it? He's saying just got 2 years. So those are the things that I think we have to look and weigh out. Again, if you go back to the first 4 years, and I'm going to play the play, and I've got to look at it right here. I'm going to tell you 2 sets of numbers, and you tell me which is Shaq and which is Richard Sherman. Okay, solo tackles in their first 4 years. One is 52. I'll go from rookie to their 4th year. One of them is 52, or 44, 53, 36, 44. The other one is 49, 54, 43, 52. I'll repeat them again. Solo tackles first 4 years. One of them is 44, 53, 36, 44. The other one is 49, 54, 43, 52. Now, it's somewhat of a rhetorical question. That's the point, right? Very, very similar. The one who's actually less in every year but one is Richard Sherman. So in a defense where we were playing loose, playing back, all those other things, it was Shaq who made those plays. Now, I am not saying that Shaq is better than Richard Sherman. I'm not saying he's a better tackler. I'm just saying I love that he's aggressive. I love that he wants to go make those plays. And one of the best things I saw as a quick commercial is, and this is where Richard Sherman and Shaq, to me, are like this. Norb, do you know what Richard Sherman's position was in college before he played DB?
Yeah, was he a receiver?
Receiver for 3 years. He was a receiver, and then he moved to DB, and then he has this Hall of Fame type career. Shaquill Griffin's at the Pro Bowl when they played it last year. Do you know what he was saying all game? Because I ended up looking for him on a mic'd up piece to see if I could find just his personality. He's constantly asking to play wide receiver. Not only does he just love to play the game, but that tells me that he wants and knows and understands how the other side is playing. And he knows and loves it so much that he wants to play it because he had an opportunity in that game, even though he didn't do it, to go in. He's like begging the guys, let me play wide receiver. I know the position. I know how to play it. That speaks of a guy that is trying to study film, is getting better, is improving, wants to do what's best for the team. And his best quote, which is why I do think that there's a good chance that he does stay, was him saying, look, all I want to do is help this team win. And I'm talking just recently. He just said this. Just recently at the end of his postseason press conference. He said, look, what matters to me most is I love these guys in the locker room. I want to do what I can to help this team win moving forward. That was like in one of his final lines. He knows he's a free agent. He knows what's coming up, yet that was how he kind of ended the press conference. Polar opposite to the quarterback situation we're talking about and how his postseason press conference went, right? So that I look for those little psychological hints.
True. Although, Jadeveon Clowney before the end of the season, before this past year, they'd heard he went up to John Schneider's office, says, I'm going to be back here. Jamal Adams says, I'll run through a brick wall for Pete Carroll. I think they believe that at the time they say these things. But then, like you said earlier, the agent comes in and starts talking business with them. And I think a lot of times it may be that the player, when it comes down to it, when they're thinking about the team, they are all in at that moment for the team. But then they just get away from it. They have a business side, I'm not shooting it down, but I do love the fact that he's saying that. But there's the counter to that too.
Yeah, and that's because I was just going to say, if your business partner Mike, who has his own channel, if he came to me and offered to double the volunteer rate for his show, I'm probably going to listen to it and maybe take it. Because if he doubles the volunteer rate that you offer, right? And I'm just joking, right? Anybody's going to always at the end look and go, oh, wait a minute. I forgot that there's going to be maybe more commas or an extra digit in the total package or what have you. Of course, that's going to change your mind, for some of these guys that at the moment, because people love having the fans be behind them, right? You don't want to let fans down, and everybody loves the limelight when you're a player. I mean, you want that. So you're going to say, I'm going to run through a brick wall. You're going to do those things because if you're going to come back, you want the fans to be excited for you. I think you're kind of I don't want to say you're an idiot, but you're not very smart. I don't think if right out of the chute, and this is not anything on Russ, but if you come out and say, I don't know if I'd really play that hard if I came back here. That's not going to help you anywhere. Like that, you want to say that even if you're leaving. I'll run through a brick wall for this team, even though tomorrow I'm going to sign with another team. Right.
I don't know. So I don't take a lot of stock in both the good or the bad of press conferences necessarily because people are going to say what they're going to say because that's what they do, right? That's necessary at the time. And so, all the stuff about right now, Russell Wilson's at the crosshairs of a lot of, frustration with fans because they're not hearing things that they normally are used to hearing or that they want to hear. But that doesn't necessarily mean he's saying, I want out of here. Again, there could be a lot of negotiating, a lot of leverage going on here for both control, power, future contracts, all these types of things. But
And I'll give you credit, Norb. You've stayed very consistent with that because when the Dan Patrick interview came out with Russ, you were right out of the chute. You said on the show when we were talking, he barely said something about the old line. I don't take a lot of stock in that. It wasn't that big a deal. And of course, it's blown up. And and I said what I thought in terms of him probably being gone potentially. But you've always been very consistent on that in terms of not letting that rile you up.
Well, and you've been very consistent in saying, and I'll remind everybody who didn't hear that quote, that Coach Marsh, and we've had to discuss this on another show that's all about this topic, that if you're stand by your prediction that you said that in about a year's time from now, you believe Russell Wilson will be heading out of Seattle somewhere else.
Yeah, and at the time we had only, and I don't want to, because I want to get to these final things, but there was only there had only at that moment been just the one thing from his group that said something about the amount of sacks he'd had in protection, and then Russ had just said that one thing the next day, and that was all there was when I said that prediction. And of course, got lambasted. It doesn't bother me because I don't take it personal. I think it's fun to me that people disagree. I don't have any issues with that. But then you fast forward, if I'd have said it a week later, people would be like, and I hate saying third person, but Coach Marsh, you're behind the times. Everybody's already been talking about that Russ he's thinking of leaving everything else. But the fact that I was one of the first out of the chute because of our channel being early, I'm not saying we're ahead of ESPN and those others. Their shows hadn't aired yet. And so we happened to say it. And I think if we'd have come out, if I'd have said the same thing 3 days later, no, I don't think it's as big of a deal. I just have to come out right away and say, yeah, based on the couple of things they said and some other things that I've heard based on people that I know, yeah, I think in a year he will be gone. I'm not saying I think he will, or I'm saying that's my prediction that he will be gone. And now look what's happened the last couple of weeks. A lot more hints towards not right now, but man, his agent sure putting a lot of stuff out there to kind of set the groundwork. It's all calculated.
Tay Francis in the super chat says it won't like what you're saying there because it says, I swear if I will freaking eat my Wilson jersey if he leaves. So I don't know how that's going to be done from a digestive standpoint, but you better hope that Coach Bill Marsh is wrong on this one, and as I am hoping because I don't want him to leave.
I hope I'm wrong. I just hope that if he does go, and I do want to get back on track, if he does go, just do it the right way, man. Because I just want him to be the beloved character that he's been.
Well, and he's been that so much to this point. He's been so far to the point where you're almost like, come on, man, enough with the Boy Scout goody two-shoes, go Hawks guy, right? Say something that we really care about. And it finally says something that's not just neutral, go Hawks, I love this team, and it's, we're just here to win, blah, blah, blah. He says finally says something that's maybe a little more true to it, and all of a sudden everybody just loses their mind, So maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's part of it. The fact that he's not normally that way. That's the reason why it's so taken so heavily, because he doesn't normally talk that way.
I always talk that my analogy for life is the freeway. I'm always giving analogies that relate to the freeway. And with Russ, he was in the right lane of life. like in the right lane of the freeway, just cruising along, going easy, waving everybody.
Not cutting anybody off.
He went right to the HOV lane instead of just slowly moving over, or at least, hey, take an exit, call, get a rest stop, do whatever, and then come back in and talk. No, he went from the right lane of life to the HOV lane, and I think that's what's got us all panicky. Like, hey, guys cut us off like that, we're going to get a little chippy, and that's when we start talking swallowing jerseys and burning jerseys, but I hope we don't ever get – we're not that type of city. I don't want us to ever become that type of city. And he's done too many great things. But again, if you're going to set yourself up for leaving, I hope that he just does it the right way, that he doesn't make people angry along the way.
All right. Well, let's go back to the topic at hand here. We're going to talk about the little Richard Sherman finish piece here, since he is part of this discussion. So, Coach, what do you got?
All right. So first one is just, again, footwork. Footwork to me is one of the biggest things that takes place. Is a DB or whatever position, is their footwork impeccable? And so that's what I'm looking at here. And this is why that calf injury is, man, you have to weigh that so much because of its, how recent it took place. Is he going to be able to come back and make this happen? Because if you watch him here on how he plays it, I mean, it's just fun to watch how he gets himself squared up. What you want to do, he recognizes pass, and now when he recognizes pass, number one, his first and foremost responsibility is make sure that 10 other guys have a chance to make the tackle if you're going to miss. Secondary force. Some guys call it force. Half the guys call it secondary force because usually a linebacker's forcing the real play. So secondary force come up, force a play to the inside, or make the tackle. But your best DBs can make tackles by not making tackles, basically. So now as he comes up to the line of scrimmage, what's great is right here, you teach guys all the time, no Olay tackles. And by Olay tackle, Norb, what I'm talking about is the guy who's sitting there and here comes the bull, the running back, and Olay, I'm going to miss him here, and Olay, I miss him here, because they just go flying after him. That's okay on the Flyers on the punt team that are flying down trying to nail those guys, right? But how many times you see a DB just go up there and just whiff because they just run so fast? Why Richard Sherman's great and why Shaq is very solid is because of what you see right here. Get your feet settled 5 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards from the receiver, the running back, whoever's the ball, and just make a good solid tackle. If you gain 2 yards, so be it, but make a good solid tackle. Well,
if you want to see a good Olay tackle, just watch me play Madden. You'll see lots of Olay tackles. Olay all over the place. But yeah, he's a great tackler. I've always loved the way he can tackle, both when he was with Seattle and with the 49ers. At least
well, they created the hawk tackle, right? The hawk tackle, which actually originated out of rugby players that were, they talking about dudes that know how to tackle. And then the Seahawks brought it in, it became the rugby tackle. Nobody wanted to bring it on, even at the college level, the high school level. People were like, we don't go eyes to the thighs, and we don't strike inside out. It's eyes to the football, eyes to the chest. No, they created this hawk tackle, and then 3 years later, everybody in America was doing it. But it was the LOB that mastered this new rugby tackle, and that's what made Richard Sherman. I mean, he just timed it that he came into the league at the perfect time. But look at how he settles his feet. He's squared up. Remember we talked about before, mirror image with the feet? He's mirror imaged with the feet. I mean, it's fantastic. And then here he is, just get low, squares up. And, and it used to be like you got to drive your legs and do all, linebackers do that when they're blitzing. But now it's eyes to the thighs. Get your eyes to the thighs, wrap up, and then just go take them to the ground. And the tackling drill they literally do is they're on their knees as guys run by easy. They tackle them, and they tackle them onto a pad. And we did that at the high school level without even any pads on. And players knew how to make tackles at darn near full speed. Because of this, a lot of people don't buy into it. They struggle, but Richard Sherman has and a Shaq has. So it's just really neat when you see, like, I just love that all this time into the league, Richard Sherman is still that great of a tackler.
Yeah. I remember that's very different because when I was playing football way back in the prehistoric days, I remember we were always told you got to put your head in front of the runner, right? So leave with your head. If your head's not in front of the runner, you're not going to be able to make the tackle. That's what I always remember them telling us. Yeah. But that's a very different. Well, there were two
things. It was strike the football with your eyes. That part I coached too. Like that was kind of that was the thing, right? So get your head across the front of the chest, but that was more coming at an angle. Right, strike the football with your eyes, wrap up, because the idea was that would keep your head up, just from a safety standpoint. Get low, drive your feet, head up. Everybody taught it. The one that drove me crazy, though, I think is the one you're talking about, where it was guys coming straight at you one-on-one, put your eyes right in his chest plate, and then try to get him there. Well, every kid in America is going to do this, right? And then get their head out of the way and I would do the same thing, like, because no one's thinking keep your head up. Everybody thinks do that. Well, NFL players were doing that too, and there was just too many situations. Injuries were taking place. Everybody forever was trying to find a new way to do it, and then people realized, oh, check out these tough dudes that are playing with their t-shirt and shorts and just crushing each other, yet nobody's getting hurt. How's that possible? Well, because rugby has this awesome style of tackling.
Right. And they got no helmet. So with the whole helmet head injuries thing in a sport where they're hitting each other and they don't have a helmet, they must be doing something right to not get the head in there. All right, what you got?
Last two. So now this goes to the difference between. So here's where we're going to compare and contrast a little bit of Shaq and Richard Sherman in terms of what they study versus how they study. Anybody can sit and pull the clicker and watch film and watch film and watch film and watch film. But where Richard Sherman was at his best, and again, what he would what his quoted as saying many, many times was, I study schemes. I study schemes so I know where to be in my deep coverage. Because the Seahawks, if you recall, weren't a heavy jam, press jam team. They were known for the cover 3 look, drop down cam, Earl Thomas free safety floating across the top. But somehow Richard Sherman would just be there. He'd just be in the right spot. Most of his interceptions aren't even nearly as close as this one to the wide receiver. He just has to be in the right spot. The receiver goes somewhere else, but he knows that the quarterback's throwing to a spot that the receiver didn't go to, and he makes the interception. So that's kind of the point of this play is it's the same look that we get with Shaq, right? He's early bail, playing over the top, but as soon as the receiver breaks, ball's going, Richard knows where to see the ball, and he's right there. I mean, that's a ball that's coming right in his lap. I saw 4 of these interceptions, Norb, and it was like, it's hard to, I mean, yes, of course it's an interception, but it wasn't like go dive in front of the guy and make the play. It was Richard Sherman being so incredibly smart. That's why he's a Stanford guy out of Compton. I mean, just his story's fantastic. He's in the right spot to make those just wide open interceptions and then, return them for touchdowns.
And it looks like when you watch this play, when he's backpedaling or running to the side, he doesn't even look like he's looking at the receiver. He looks like he's looking at the quarterback the whole time.
Well, yeah, so they're playing
probably
zone.
Both, but you could definitely see he's got an eye on the quarterback.
He is locked in on the corner, and again, obviously if he's playing man, he's still, when he's bailing out, he's going to check it a little bit, but as soon as quarterback sets his back foot, right there, he's getting ready, and boom, he's locked, and there it is. So he knows that quarterback is throwing something. Again, when you study film so many times, you see all these tendencies. This was the closest interception I could find in the search. Now, he had some that were just, fantastic dive in the air, but it wasn't necessarily his guy that he was covering. He just happened to, he was covering a square in, and a guy's going a deep post, and he happened to back up, make a great play. But that wasn't really equating it to him. That's just a fantastic play of him backing up. When he was truly matched up with somebody or a guy was in his zone, and understand for those who are watching that zone defense doesn't mean you just are just covering the zone. It means everybody who comes into your zone now becomes man-to-man. So really, if you were to elongate what a zone is, it's zone man-to-man. So you play man-to-man or you play zone man-to-man, because as soon as a player comes into your zone, you got to lock on that guy until he's got out of your zone, and then you're communicating. So this was the closest interception. There were 2 or 3. He's 10 yards away. You think he's been beat, and then the ball comes right to him. It's unbelievable how he does it. And you can see it just here from this angle. I mean, there's ball thrown. He's just in the right spot. It makes it look very easy.
Helps that the quarterback looks like he's staring the receiver down the whole time, too.
Yeah. So to really bring some blood to a boil, to really kind of finish this on an interesting note, I thought I'd bring up the old Seattle Seahawks. I know you're a fan of these guys, Norb. So, as am I, big time. So why not put Richard Sherman and DK Metcalf together, and let's see how it turns out, right? Because you're taking
Is this last year? Is this 2019?
This is 2019, yeah. So
the game we won, the overtime game in San Francisco. Or
this is the battle, yeah. Which to me makes it great, right? Like if we're able to get Richard Sherman as a healthy Richard Sherman, let's say his calf completely heals, and now we're having to determine, is it Shaq, young Shaq, who you just saw those things I showed you there, and was it coverage, and are we going to count on coverage schemes changing, versus is it Richard Sherman, the old guard who's just a heady guy. If he was an NBA player, you'd say he's a crafty veteran or a cagey veteran. Okay, well, let's watch the play here against DK Metcalf. Now, and I would argue this is one of DK's best, and you know how much I've done breakdowns of DK Metcalf. This is one of DK's best get-offs ever that I've seen since he's been a pro. In terms of how well he gets off the ball on a guy who's right on. I mean, there's quick movements. He's shaking back and forth, maybe 1-2 minutes extra. But here's the cagey veteran. While DK's doing all his shake and bake move over here, watch what Richard Sherman's doing while DK's just shaking back and forth. The arms, the legs are pumping like crazy. Watch Richard's feet and tell me if he's a guy who's seen this move before. I mean, all that movement, and Richard never moved. He just, look, dude, make your decision. You're going out, you're going in. I'm going to cover either way. Like that's a guy who's aging, but he's aging well, man. He's like the fine wine, right? Like he just look. You're the beast. You're a big dude, but I'm Richard Sherman. You may be cocky, but I'm cockier. You may be good, but I'm great. Or as Rocky once said to Apollo, Paul said the other way, you fight great, but I'm a great fighter. Same thing here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here's the battle. So let's watch it again, just at full speed. But what I love is that last part there with Richard Sherman. Again, we're only talking a year ago, and he was playing this way the first game, and I saw other plays like this before the injury. Just that over the top, coming after you, making things happen. And this is the last part of the play because you just see it so exceptionally well here at the end. Just gonna let it play full speed. And this, not to bring up Russ again, most would argue that this is the stuff, and this is why I think we played great this game. Remember we talking about how quick Russ can get it out and get it out.
Yeah.
Gosh, I wish we could see more than that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of like a little plug for a future show of we're going to get Russ doing that again. That's when it was fun. But I just love watching this last little part here as we wrap up. Again, if you're making your decision on young Shaq, the way he breaks on the ball, the 4.3, 840 speed combined with the quick feet versus a cagey, crafty veteran who knows how to break on the ball. But again, what you do have to factor in is you have to factor in the fact that he does have that calf injury. And that to me is going to be the tilting and deciding factor here for fans is removing the emotional tie of Richard Sherman and just looking athlete for athlete. Do you have an athlete that you bring back and say, we're going to pay you a lot of money, it's going to hurt us somewhere else, but we can build something around you, and we've got our safety, and we got some really nice pieces there, kind of like we had back in the LOB days, right? Great linebacker, great safeties, great cornerback. Or do we bring back Richard Sherman, knowing the risk of the pain of his injury, but we're not going to pay as much, so maybe we can help ourselves out at the left guard position or at the other corner or somewhere else on the field.
So let me ask you this. Yeah, so you did all this analysis and breakdown. So two-part question then. One, is there a caller asked about it? Can we have both? One, is it possible to have both in your analysis of the team and the cap of the situation? And then two, if you had to make a choice, where would you lean to? You provided the data. You provided a lot for us to digest, but I'm going to force you to. I'm going to be like Dan Patrick on Russell Wilson. Now, you're not really answering my question. So, what are you going to choose here?
I'll answer the question. That's the difference between me and Russ. Like, I'm not protecting some image because I have to go be on the cover of a magazine, with my wife or something like that. So, I'll answer the question because it's us having fun here, and I like.
All right. So two parts to the question. One, can we have them both? Two, who do you pick if we can't?
Can we have them both? The answer is no. You can't. To pay what you're going to pay for both, even regardless, to me, it's just not worth paying both of them what you might pay because there's too many other things that we have to fix. And again, I can remove the emotional aspect of it. I'm a huge Richard Sherman fan. Love the guy. Love how he played. Would love to see him return. All those things. But to pay to get both of them, and same with Shaq. I love Shaq. I love what he does. I'd love to see him stay here. So I'm keeping it balanced before I answer question two.
All right. So just to go back to my poll from a couple days ago where I asked, should the Seahawks bring back Richard Sherman, knowing that Coach Marsh is saying we cannot have both, while some people I think are hoping that we could, For those of you who 71% of the 3,000 people who voted, 71% said yes. Only 29% said no, meaning that would be, well, by saying yes, you're saying no to Shaquill Griffin. So let that weigh in as you decide if you want Richard Sherman back, is what you're basically saying. So now let's move on to
I mean, and again, I am not going to say that I am a man. Like, have Nick LeBeau call in and tell you about all the cap space hits and how it's going to impact us there. Because
I think we all know they don't have a lot of money to spend. So it's
So you just, again, because I know the fixes we have to take those. So answer your second question. To answer your second question, which was which of the two am I going to have? I'm absolutely keeping Shaq, because the calf injury to me is just too much of a. It's just too much of a risk. And of course, I know any player can get injured at any time, but Shaq is on the rise, right? I mean, he's on the rise. We know that Richard has seen his best years, and maybe he can get close to that, but he doesn't have the LOB around him. All those other things. Our schemes are different. We can't say that Adams is equated to Cam Chancellor, because it's apples to oranges in terms of they're both great players, but there's just a little bit of difference there. I think you bring Shaq back. The tough part is he going to take, is he not going to take the full amount? If he's going to take the full amount, obviously that brings up a thing. But if I have to choose one or the other, it's going to be that. Trouble is, I feel like there's other things that are more important to take care of before Shaq. So the question is just about these two. I'm going with Shaq. But if we equate it to other positions on the field that I'd rather pay more to get stronger at, then taking care of Shaq moves maybe to third or fourth on my priority list overall. But in terms of your question, I'm going to go with Shaq, based primarily on that calf injury.
I was talking to my buddy Pat, who I go to the games with, who I've been season ticket holders with for years, and we were having a conversation right before the show, and he gave me something to chew on. He said, what about Richard Sherman coming back? He thinks he's too slow to play corner because of the things he talked about. Please don't ask me to
come back as a coach.
No. So they're saying that in the chat. They're saying that, and everybody loves to say that bring him back as a coach, like it's just sort of an automatic thing. But
we'd have to fire Cam Chancellor, because Cam Chancellor's already back as a DB. I'm just joking. We're always bringing everybody back.
Everybody come back as a coach.
I already said my former high school, when I played in high school, we were the graveyard of Seahawks coaches in terms of we had 7 former NFL players that were coaches for us, and only 6 of them couldn't coach. Only one really could, and that was Sherman. And hey, look who made it back to the NFL as a coach, ended up coaching forever. Because you know what he would always say? It's not about me, it's all about you guys. And he would never share a story. He wouldn't compare anything to what he did. All the other guys, all they wanted to do was compare it to how they played, how they did it, how we used to do it. It's why today you can't go out and yell at kids anymore when you're coaching, right? It used to be not yell. I mean, like Tarbox used to say, it's coaching from a distance. I'm just coaching from a distance. Coach, they're 2 feet away from you. We don't do, but he was just intense that way. You have to coach differently. So Richard Sherman's smart, all those things. I'm not saying he couldn't coach. He could probably be a professor at Stanford. But great players don't make great coaches. Conversely,
good point.
A lot of great coaches that didn't play.
So what my friend Pat was saying, he said, well, we should, and now this, of course, throws a whole, completely blows away your whole, get them both. But he was saying, well, if we can get them both, have Shaquill Griffin be the corner and put Sherman as a safety. It's like, I hadn't thought about that. That would be interesting, but I don't see how that would. You'd have to play free safety. You got to have some speed to play free safety as well.
Response to that. Here's my easy response to that too. Are we willing to risk one game with that experiment? If you knew that one experiment is going to cost you one game, because that's what it would cost you. When you do an experiment with a secondary player, a quarterback, and a center, I would say those key positions. If you do an experiment there for 4 games, 5 games, you're going to lose a game because of that experiment. Because you're getting guys you're trying to get guys to understand it's new stuff. You're going to be out of position no matter what. To me, it's not worth the risk. If we were a team on the rise, if we're rebuilding, sure. But man, as tough as our division is, we're going to need every single win. I want Richard Sherman here. I'd love to see it, and I know that we're looking for reasons for it, and maybe he will come. I don't know. I mean, I certainly don't know that. But to me, to just try to find, I mean, why not let him play quarterback? He'd be the smartest guy out there. If Russ leaves, let's let Richard play quarterback. He can do bootlegs and he'll throw the ball.
Oh man. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens here. But let's go to some calls. We got a few people lined up the phone lines.
Let him be up in the booth with
Everybody wants to have that, that feeling we had when Marshawn Lynch came back at the end of 2019, and the pick-me-up that we got, the euphoria that was immediately injected at a time when we just had a horrible loss to a division team like the Cardinals. Suddenly we went from erase that bad memory because he was walked back onto the field to join the Seahawks.
So I like to do kind of fun little bets with people that are not relating to the game, like that, not on the game itself, but in terms of like just quirky things. That game when Marshawn Lynch came back, I was with the group, and I mean, I remember the excitement when somebody played like Mariah Carey's "All I Want for Christmas," and it was Marshawn Lynch highlight video. Like, I was getting choked up, tears coming down my face. It was the night it was getting announced that he was coming back. Like, this is the coolest thing ever. And I immediately connected with a bunch of my buddies and said, you know what's going to be awesome? And I'm willing to bet all you guys this. He's going to be the first player in Seahawks history to raise the 12th man flag and then be down in time for the first play of the game. And then he doesn't even start. Like, they bring him in at a token time of the game. Like, but I thought for sure he was going to raise the flag. People were going to go ballistic. And then they were going to somehow get him down to the field.
That would have been awesome.
Like, Skittles and slide down the Skittles slide from the flag. It was just going to be like this epic scene. Like, it would have been fantastic. If I was running the marketing thing, I said, Marshawn, look, since they're not going to start you, let's have you raise the flag, get this place going 8S nuts around here, like it already is, but just let's talk about a beast quake. And then we're going to just take you down there, and then you just stroll with Skittles, go into the game. They're going crazy again. Dude, it'd have been game over. Instead, we don't know what play to run in the fourth quarter when we need him in the game.
I would have loved that too, because I was on that 12th flag platform when they did it in that game. I would have gotten to see them up close and see that moment happen. So, darn it, that would have been great. So many missed opportunities, but oh well, that's kind of the past. We won't dwell on it. So let's go to some calls now. Let's start with Nick LeBeau. Nick, you're on with the coach.
There you go. All
Nick right, LeBeau. Coach, I'll answer your question. So realistically,
hey, everybody, pay attention to Nick LeBeau. I said it last night. He's gonna be the first ever 5.0 GPA kid in America, and he's gonna show us right now this breakdown of the.
All right, Nick, show off your stuff, man. What do you got?
Yeah, so I mean, realistically, with our cap flexibility, if we did make some extensions and some moves, we'd have enough money to re-sign Shaq and sign Sherman, but looking at our roster, it's really not worth it. We have DJ Reed, who is arguably one of our most consistent corners, and he's coming back on a super cheap waiver wire deal. We also could re-sign Quentin Dunbar, who kind of has a chip on his shoulder. He was out all year, and which could actually be a good thing, because if he is still a really good corner, we'd definitely get him for cheaper in this free agency class, knowing that he was out for most of the year. And looking after seeing the coach's corner, I agree. I would take Shaq over Richard Sherman. I think Shaq would definitely last with us longer. And yeah.
Okay. So it is possible, but unwise. It would be unwise to make a move such as that. And if you had to choose one, we had another one for Shaquille, which would make him and his brother happy to hear that vote.
Definitely.
There's a funny chat. MJ Daniel says about the Marshawn Lynch thing. Raise the flag, then zip line down to the field. Nice. That would have been awesome. With like a fiery torch or something.
Rocket pack. All they have to do is lower the sky cam. Lower the sky cam down a little ways.
He'd be holding on to it.
You already got the 4 cords like Mary Poppins. This, right? The 4 cords are here. Put a 5th cord on the. Like, how hard is it to come up with that type of stuff? And I'm not a marketing guy. I mean, I'm a little bit with what I do for my career, but it would have been epic. It would have been NorbCam.
It would have been.
And if they could have done that, they should have just had him roll in a big tire, like in that Subway commercial. He just roll onto the field and did a big.
You said you were on the platform, right?
I was on the platform. Yeah.
People would have been like, "Here's Marshawn. Who's hanging on to Marshawn? Who's ziplining down to the field? It's NorbCam. Norb's hanging on to Marshawn. He jumps off like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, and he's ready for the play action.
Yep. Oh, well, we can always dream about what could have been. As Tay Francis says, so many missed opportunities. Life of a Seahawks fan summed up.
Yeah. I hope everybody out there a chance to really, really think about this, because I think it's just a really fascinating. It's a fascinating debate. I think there's really equal parts to both sides that you can argue for both on both sides, right? Both the pros and the cons for both of them, which is a rare situation. And you do throw in that, even if you throw out the nostalgia piece or the calf piece, and you just look at it from just two athletes at this time of their career, it's a great topic.
Oh yeah.
In my
You can say, Nick?
Oh yeah. Also, to go on about why it would be unwise to get Sherman is what Sherman's probably most likely asking for. If we were to re-sign him, we'd be pretty stacked at the corner position, but that would probably be like a confirmed by KJ, because we would not have enough money to sign Sherman for the deal he'll desire, and then go out and re-sign KJ for the deal he'll desire.
How much does Sherman desire anyway, you think?
I mean, he hasn't come out publicly saying, I want so-and-so money.
Best guess, because Shaquille's around 15?
15, yeah.
So is Sherman looking for...
to 10.
Like 15.
Right. So what would Sherman asking for?
Probably somewhere in that 10 mil category, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know
And
if
I
he
think
get
I think
it.
that would surprise a lot of people who don't know about that. I think a lot of people would think that he's a $5 million guy or something. He's not. He's still a high level. He's a. I don't want to say he's a B level. He's still an A level guy in terms of I think what people think about.
He
other
knows
than the
his
cap.
worth.
Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely knows what he's worth.
And he's going to make other guys better. We didn't get into that aspect of it, right?
No doubt.
Richard Sherman walks into the locker room. Other dudes are going to play harder because of who he is. He's a legit Hall of Fame guy. He's won a Super Bowl. He's a guy that can come in and command the crowd. But again, does he fit in with the personalities that are on there? I think he'd make it work. Because I think he is smart. When he first came out and people were just ripping him, being the trash talker he was, and he'll never get endorsements, all those other things. He was calculated. How could a guy, a Stanford guy, smart guy, you knew that he was doing it for a reason, and he became a great, he was wearing the Beats headphones and doing all those other things. And it was awesome because he knew how to take trash talking, how to do it in a kind of the same way Marshawn Lynch did his branding, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he was so calculated every single time he did it, and that's why you loved him. Anybody else who's saying, I'm only here because I won't get fined, would have been ripped apart. But everybody loved Marshawn. They're like, dude, that's Marshawn. That's what he does.
Well, that became his image. Richard Sherman was talking, and Marshawn didn't. And so every word he said became like this nugget of gold. He's speaking, and then they would just hang on it. So every one that came out was just a diamond. But
they knew their roles, right? That's what made that team special. They knew their roles, and I've talked about this earlier. That I still don't think that we as the current Seattle Seahawks, I don't think that there's truly an understanding of what the roles are in terms of who guys are in the locker room.
Well, and I think it's to build on that.
Who's really doing that?
What's the identity of this team right now? What is the identity of the Seahawks?
In 2013, our identity was pretty clear.
Yeah, it was run the ball and play lockdown defense. That was what it was.
But you could equate that to people. You could say our identity was the LOB and Marshawn Lynch. They were it. And then we had a great up-and-coming quarterback. We had some other things, but you knew what everybody in America was going to talk about when they were playing the Seattle Seahawks was, we got to deal with this LOB, and then we got to deal with this running back and their power game. That, when we talk personalities, when you can get that just distinctive to actual names of players or a nickname and all those other things, you can't do that with the Seahawks right now. But I hope that we're going to get there.
No, you can't.
Next year.
But I think we can very easily get there. I mean,
we're not that far away.
The Rams are going to get there because they found their quarterback, and the Cardinals are going to get there. So.
Yeah.
Alina back in the chat says, "Real Rob report trying to get Marshawn to talk still cracks me up." I miss those days, man. Rob.
That's another thing.
I tell you what,
Rob report, man, it was hilarious.
I search any of Marshawn Lynch's recent interviews. His recent stuff is some of the funniest stuff ever.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he's with Conan lately.
Conan is hilarious. He's on a ton of stuff.
Awesome. Because now he's like Mr. Articulate, which is so, the antithesis of what he did. But because his brand just boomed, and now all of a sudden he's he's able to just be him. And oh my gosh.
Have you guys ever seen the Bear Grylls or whatever that guy, the outdoor guy, when he goes on that, the survival thing? That is one of the funniest things ever. If you guys look it up. I forgot the name of the show. It's starring Bear Grylls, I think is his name, but it's the something.
It's outdoor something.
It's survival. I can't remember. Just Google Marshawn Lynch outdoors bear or something. Yeah. That is a funny show. That is funny.
Another thing I'd like to see us do in free agency is really invest in a fullback, because we haven't really had like a real blocking run game fullback in a while.
It's a dying breed, man. Not a lot of teams do it. San Francisco is one of the few teams that has a fullback.
Yeah, because nowadays a lot of the fullbacks are guys you just throw in.
I think there's going to be a resurgence. I honestly think there's going to be, because of this hybrid West Coast offense that is starting to really kind of make its way back in a strong way. I mean, the true West Coast offense, again, was the A back and the B back, and then you had your tight end, you had your wide receiver, and your split end. I mean, that was the San Francisco 49ers. That's where it really started. Holmgren ran it with us with Hasselbeck when we went to 2005 Super Bowl. And now those teams that are running with those fullbacks, there was a couple of years where nobody had fullbacks. I mean, like literal fullbacks, where you're getting into two back packages and having a lead blocker in there. Man. But now that we're seeing those jumbo packages come back with 2 and 3 tight ends, where you're spacing out that defensive front, hey, let that linebacker take on that linebacker, or let that fullback take on that linebacker, and then you slip them out into the flat. Like you said, Nick, the 49ers are doing it. There's a couple other teams doing it. And I think with us, with our offense, I think it's tailored. Again, you don't have to spend much for them. They're
right.
You're not going to find a Mike Allstar or some of the famous ones, but you can find
the Rams. The Rams in that Shane Waldron offense don't really value that fullback, so I don't really see us investing in one anytime soon under this new regime.
Unless they come up with something different, it may not be the carbon copy of what they did with the Rams. They're still it's going
to be a hybrid.
It could be a hybrid. So
because you always want to sprinkle in your own personality, which can be good and it can be bad. Yeah, right. Because he's going to placate a little bit to his quarterback, because Russell will be here this year. I'm predicting he'll be here this year. So he's got to placate to that a little bit. But if Russell buys into the offense that is bootlegs and sprint outs and all those others, which I would think he would, then there would be a little, hey, well, let's get you a fullback, because that's going to add one more back for protection when we're doing isolation routes with DK, on either side of the ball. Let's max protect you there. But also you're at your best when you're outside of the pocket. And if we could do play action, like just dink and dunk it when you need to, and then we'll hit the home run ball when we have to do it.
Yeah.
Another thing I just thought about Sherman is if we sign Sherman, that also kind of says goodbye to us getting a real top tier offensive lineman in this class.
Yeah.
So just another kind of...
Yeah, you can't get something for nothing. Something's going to have to give. So real quick here, Alina Dahl in the Super Chat says, speaking of fullbacks, that's what Mike Robb was. Yes, we loved him back in the day with the Super Bowl 48. We need to get back to them for sure. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. So here's what I want to do.
Fullback doesn't mean old school. Fullback doesn't mean old school, right? So I think people think if we say fullback...
Yeah, you're just going to run I formation all day long.
We're not going back to the T formation. We're not going to the 4 horsemen shift, like Kansas City ran the one play in the Super Bowl with. We're not going back to 1981 wing turf football in the Kingdom, Norb. You're still spreading the football. It just gives you an extra guy. Most teams with fullbacks now even do stuff without tight ends. So you're running with 2 running backs, but no tight ends. You're in a 20 personnel, as they call it.
Yeah.
But that's true. 3 wide receivers out there. You're just giving a different guy, which to me is great, especially if you have 5 linemen that are making $1 million or worth $1 million points. You got to do something else.
So I want to try something here. So I want to get Seahawks for Life in on the call, because he has a question, been waiting to get in on here. Then I'm going to open the lines that we have here. I think there's like 4 of you in the chat, and I think we're going to do one last big rush, because I know there's so much talk about the Russell Wilson thing. We'll do sort of like an open forum debate in the last 5 minutes of the show, and just sort of get a few things out there before we wrap it up. But first I'm going to get the question from Seahawks for Life. So Seahawks for Life, you got the floor. What's on your mind?
Instagram. There's a lot on my mind.
All right, what you got? Start with one.
I think it is a good idea to bring back Richard Sherman just for short passes, because that's Shaquille's weakness. He's not very good at covering the short passes. He's very good at the long passes, which is one of the reasons why I like Shaquill Griffin.
Well, that's kind of a tough deal. It sounds like what you're saying is you have a two-part cornerback system where you have one guy who plays the short and one plays the long, and that would be a very expensive two-person party system running there.
But here's the thing. That means that somehow you've pulled something out of the hat where you know when to put one guy in because you know the deep ball's coming. And
that's
so
what
it's like when teams used to follow Norb, like they'd follow him to see where he's going. They knew like, oh, we're throwing it deep because that cameraman for that team over there is going deep. Oh, he's short. They must be throwing something short because Norb would always know where to line up because he could hear the play I was calling it once he learned the offense.
Oh yeah. But yeah, what else you got?
I also did have a question for Coach.
Yeah, go for it.
Have you ever wanted to be like a head coach in? Have you ever wanted to be like a head coach? If you had an opportunity to go to the NFL to be a head coach, would you do it?
No, most likely not. I mean, of course, anybody would have a dream when I was younger, this dream to go coach in the NFL and all those things. To me, I was able to coach exactly where I think I was made to coach. I mean, I love the level that I coached at. Again, like I said, I had a couple opportunities to do that. Had really what I thought was going to be a really close opportunity to jump into the XFL, but thank goodness that didn't pan out because it wasn't going to be something that lasted very long, obviously. But I loved coaching at the high school level, and to me, especially in my conversation with Sherman, not Richard Sherman, but my mentor Sherman Smith, who again coached it for 22 years in the NFL. He would tell me all the time that the best coach he ever coached with was the guy that he coached with in high school. When Sherman was the offensive coordinator for myself and my head coach, Jim Sampson, who was a great coach and great guy, he would always say like those were some of the best coaches he was with because guys at the NFL level, they kind of think they know it all because they played or what have you. And even some of the players, like I found it funny when you would share that, coaches' wives would show up and be sitting there waiting for the car after the game to talk to him. Like he's the running backs coach and somebody's wife's waiting to talk to him about why their husband, who's an NFL running back, didn't get playing time. And I'm like that really happens. Like I deal with that at the high school level, but you're dealing with that. And I come to find that happens at college level, NFL level. So I just think there's just so much that goes on with it. And the money thing, if that was the only reason, I shouldn't be doing it. So to me, coaching high school kids, just loved it. It was phenomenal. I had a great run and I got to meet Norb through it. So yeah, that was the place to be. College, different story. If you asked me if I'd be a college head coach, I would jump on that in a heartbeat.
All right, so this is what I want to do is we're about to wrap this show up. We're about the 2-hour mark, and so I want to kind of finish with this. So there's been so much about the Russell Wilson thing, obviously some articles that have come out lately, and so what I want to do with the 5 people, I guess we have 5 people in the chat or in the on the phone lines. I'm going to give you each about 30 to 45 seconds, and I want you to each just do your own statement on what you think is going to happen with Russell Wilson. And I just want to get a quick sampling of everybody's sort of predictions / analysis of what you think is going to happen with the Russell Wilson situation. We already know what Coach Marsh thinks. I know what I think. I want to hear.
Or do they get like 2 timeouts there? They go like,
well,
like
for the
show, right? Like we have 5 minutes left, but Norb has 3 timeouts left for everybody out there, so you know. So
no. There's no timeouts here. I'm going to do a literal timer. Okay, I'll give a minute. I'll be generous. I'm going to give you guys a minute. I'm going to set a timer, so you're going to have to actually stick to it. All right. So we're going to just go down the line. I want to hear your guys' answers on that. So we're going to start with Sky High Aviation. Sky High Aviation, are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay, all right. So Sky Aviation, you have 1 minute to do your sort of like a lawyer's closing arguments of what you think is going to happen with the Russell situation. You have 1 minute. Go.
Okay, so there's 2 ways this happens. Russell doesn't get traded or Russell does get traded. We're going to look at it as Russell gets traded. The only option that I see happening if Russell gets traded is us trading him to the Miami Dolphins. Reason number 1, Dolphins are an AFC team. Only play them every 4 years. Reason number 2, the Dolphins have a possible franchise QB. They also have lots of first-round draft picks. What the price was? 3 first-round draft picks. The Dolphins have 2 first-round draft picks inside the top 20 this year. And if we were able to get those picks, probably upgrade to the offensive line, probably upgrade at wide receiver, tight end, whatever. And reason number 4, Miami's a nice city. Russell probably likes it. It's probably better fit for his family, Sierra. So that's pretty much it. But I do like. Well, there you go.
Time is
I
up.
do like
Okay.
the fact that Tua
Great
would
job,
come to this
Scott.
All right.
franchise.
Great job, man.
So, and final thing, you've made the points. Now, just wrap it up. Is he going to be? Or will he be a Seahawk?
I don't think so. Even what we saw today, I don't think Russell would become a dirty person and do all this. And if he does leave, it'd be in a classy manner, like Coach Marsh said.
All right, so you're saying Miami, the most likely place, but you don't think it's going to happen?
No.
Okay.
And if he does go to Miami, we get 3 first-round picks and 2 plus probably more picks.
Okay. All right. Well packaged. Let's go to Nick. Let's go to Nick LeBeau. You're going to have 60 seconds starting now. Go.
The Seattle Seahawks will not trade Russell Wilson this offseason. That is a period. Now, looking forward into the future, I believe if we do not pass the wild card round this offseason or this next season, that Russell Wilson will politely request a trade to either the Miami Dolphins, Las Vegas Raiders, and I think we'll grant that to him. However, if we do pass the divisional round, do pass the wild card, and get to at least the conference championship, I think that Russell Wilson plays out his contract in Seattle. If we do not win a Super Bowl in these next 3 years, I think Russell Wilson will leave at the end of his contract. The main reason why I think that he will not get traded is, 1, the Seahawks would incur a $30 million debt, and 2, it would kind of tarnish his legacy with the Seahawks if he would demand a trade. I don't think he's going to get traded. I think he will be a lifelong Seahawk.
Okay. I like your analysis. We'll go with it. All right, let's continue down the line. Let's go John Rick 453. Are you ready, John Rick 453?
I joined the middle school dance team at 12 years old and the high school team at 14. I'm so fortunate to have had a season this year. But
okay, I think we're just listening to somebody's dance team audition. All right, let's go to Dylan Tate. Let's go Dylan Tate. Dylan Tate, are you doing a dance team audition, or are you ready to talk about the Russell Wilson situation for 60 seconds?
Russell Wilson situation for 60 seconds. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Here we go. 60 seconds starts now.
So I don't think we're going to trade him. I think we're going to keep him. And I think that if we did trade him next year, I think we would trade him maybe to the Texans, because they is reported that he might stay another year, might hold him. And we trade for Deshaun Watson and like 3 first picks. And maybe we'll get back to form and probably go to Super Bowl with Deshaun Watson. And that's it. Thank you.
All right. Does that in 25 seconds. All right. Very fast and efficient. Okay. Who do we got left? Let's see. Let's go to Seahawks for Life, who was just talking earlier. Seahawks for Life. Are you ready?
Yeah. 3, 2, 1, go.
Go.
I don't think he will get traded. I think Shane Waldron will help this team win, just because I think he'll help us get past through the 49ers, the Cardinals, and importantly, the Rams. And I like Shane Waldron's play style, play action, a lot of creative stuff with a little bit running scheme. And maybe a few more jet sweeps, and I love that he uses his tight ends. And I know earlier a couple of weeks ago you guys had to talk about Zach Ertz. I like Zach Ertz as a tight end. He's one of the best tight ends in the league, and I think he could do well for Seattle.
All right. Well, that is your time. So you think Shane Waldron with his new offense will get it done and Russell Wilson will stay? Bottom line.
I think he's done well enough to, well, not just well enough. LA, but I think it can transform from LA to Seattle.
Okay. All right. Let's go.
Norb, can I clear something up for the crowd?
Go for it.
That I think needs to be cleared up.
Okay.
It is perceived that Russ is worth 3 first-round draft picks, and I know that was floated out there. I don't know who the original source of it was that he's worth, and I will agree, he's worth 3 first-round draft picks. But there's no way. I mean, the chances are so far beyond anything other than maybe minuscule that we would trade someone, a quarterback, for 3 first-round draft picks. We might trade him for a quarterback and 2 first-round draft picks, but we're not going to trade for 3 first-round draft picks, even if it meant we were getting the number 1 pick that's going to be a rookie. If we're saying that our goal is to win this next year, everybody would go insane. They would just be crazy. Jamal Adams would get upset. Everybody would get upset because people have come here to try to win a Super Bowl right now. So this talk about, well, he would be worth 3. He is worth 3, but that's not what the trade would ever be. The trade would be a quarterback for someone else. So that's why, don't sleep on if something was to happen. Even if you're a New York Jets fan, you got a shot at it. If you got a halfway decent quarterback, and that like New York Jets fans, don't get overly excited because I'm not saying he's going there, but anybody with a decent quarterback has a shot because the value has been placed out there. That who leaks out sources? The team leaks them out deliberately. No, it's not a leak. They turn on the faucet and send it out there, but they call it a leak. So there's 3 first-round draft picks. Well, let's say it's Sam Darnold and 2 first-round draft picks. Well, now we've taken care of our first-round draft picks for the next couple of years, which gets people excited, or maybe it's this year. And now we're taking care of other things. That's why I don't think it'll happen right now because of what Nick said, right? Like the hit would be so big from a financial standpoint, which is why I think Russ and his camp have set this thing up so that way a year down the road, when he leaves, it's him saying, look, I kind of let you guys know last year it was coming and things didn't happen. And even though I was 7 for 42 in the playoff game, we didn't go past this round, so I'm leaving. But it's already been set for a year, so it doesn't hurt us. That's why it's hurting right now to even think about it, but why it becomes classy a year from now when we'll look back and go, well, we kind of saw it coming, so it's not like this quick punch. But I want us to be careful with this. Well, 3 first-round draft picks, nobody would get excited about that because we'd still have to go find a quarterback.
Yeah, and there's no guarantee that there's going to be a quarterback in that draft class from whenever those rounds come from. So
you have to trade for a quarter. If when the time comes, you're trading for a quarterback and 2 first-round draft picks, or whatever all the point. Every pick's worth points, so they're going to get their points in return. But they got to get a quarterback. If they didn't, I'd probably stop being a fan for a little while.
That would be a dark day.
Can you believe we're even talking about this? Like the day of the Super Bowl, nobody's thinking this is going to be anything. He's accepting his man of the year and all those things. But
yeah, with 3 years away, 3 years from his contract, we were all like, "Oh, that's we don't have to worry about that for another 3 years." And then
that's why it's so calculated. I mean, just put it out there right after the Super Bowl. It's like, man, that's a little. That's why I think it's frustrating for some people. Like, there's no right time that we'd want to hear it. Just didn't seem like that was the time to really kind of start stirring things up when we're just getting ready to get amped up for the season. Just get ready to start getting excited.
Well, I guess if you think about it, can't do it during the season. You don't want to do it during the training camp, so really the only time you can do it is sometime between the Super Bowl and the draft.
But he's gaining no leverage by it. There's really, he's just stirring the pot, but there's no leverage to be gained with the fact that he's not going to leave right now. They're not going to trade him because it would just be such a pound on him.
Right.
Financially.
If only we knew the truth. We could get inside Russell Wilson's head and knew what was in that plan.
Jets fans, settle down. I don't know if I'm sure the super chat's blowing up, or don't send this out there. Like, I'm not saying that he's coming to New York. Although I did say earlier that I thought he would consider a big, kind of like Sky High said. He does have a wife that likes the big city and wants those. And I know that we say Seattle's big time too and everything, but it's not New York.
Yeah, it's not
Miami.
That market.
It's not LA.
Sky High Aviation says, I swear, if Russ gets traded, I will die. Well, don't do that. But I know the feeling. Something inside you will die. I know for me, I'll feel like something's going to die.
Is it because we get upset because it's our guy, like because we love Russ, we want him to stay here? Or is it because we'd be losing this player that we think is the only player that can get us to the Super Bowl? Or are there 10 other quarterbacks that we could trade for that would fit our system, but then we'd be allowed to go get some of the other pieces that we can't get because we've become hamstrung by contracts? Not just by his. I mean, there's other guys that.
Yeah. Rowena Rosenberg says, shout me out, please. I've been watching your channels, watching you since you started your channel. Thank you very much. I appreciate your loyalty from the beginning. So I got one more call to get to. This is Armand is 2 with the final word, 60 seconds about the Russell Wilson topic. Armand, are you ready? Armand, are you there? Maybe he won't be doing it. Hello. Armand going once, going twice? I guess he's not going to have the final word. Well, I guess Coach Marsh looks like you're having the final word. That is it. We're pretty much at the end of our time anyway. So this is great. Actually, we'll have to do that more often. It's actually kind of fun to have sort of a quick final word from the audience to kind of give their take on a certain issue. So we'll have to do that again. That was kind of fun. So, well, Coach, thank you for the breakdown. I loved it. It was great to kind of see, and now I've got a kind of new, fresh perspective on appreciating Shaquill Griffin and also appreciating a little bit, of what the schemes we'll want to be looking at. I want to see some more press coverage. I want to see Shaquill Griffin the grill these guys if and when he does get re-signed and back on that field in 2021. So, Coach, why don't you remind everybody again where they can find you and what to expect from you in the coming weeks on your channel.
Yeah, well, start off with this show. I think I'm super amped about what we're going to be doing over the next couple of weeks. Not just in terms of the content, but in terms of how we're going to deliver the content. So I think you're going to see some. I know you're going to see some really enhanced ways that we're going to bring this show to you. So I'm super excited about what we've uncovered and discovered, and are feverishly working to make better. You'll find me on the new channel that I launched, which is Coach for Life. Coach, the number 4, and then life. Have some great guys that I'm working with. Obviously, with Norb's the leader of the pack with that. He's been mentoring me, and guys like DJ Squabo and Steezy and Seahawks Martin. And then even when I talked to Brian Abker, great stuff there. I do a round table with some young men on Saturday nights. So that's kind of the first piece we're doing. And then I'm behind the scenes. I'm working on some smaller little breakdown videos, somewhat like this, but a little bit different. It dives into both between the hash marks, which is hardcore stuff, and outside the hash marks, which is more about life. And be talking about some of the stuff that I've gone through personally. That's pretty heavy and deep stuff, but some fun things. So just appreciate everybody's support out there in the super chat. Just all the stuff you're doing. I'm not one of those that's going to constantly come on and do the like and the subscribe, because I'm just not right there yet to do those things. But I know Norb will say it for me, so I don't have to worry about it.
And I'll say it right now. Yes,
but definitely push his stuff. I push his stuff. I'm excited about that. So
just
appreciate being on here, and remember to, as I like to say, live life one play at a time.
All right. So, yes, you can find his channel, Coach 4, the number 4, Coach 4 Life. You can search it up. And if you don't want to search it up, you can also just click on the link in the description and you'll find it there as well. So, and as well as the guys you just mentioned, Steezy and Squabo and Seahawks Martin, you'll see their links in the description as well. So go check out their content as well. So while I would say this is the end of this show, it doesn't have to be the end of your viewing experience, because there's going to be some screens right here that you can pop into and watch another episode of something really cool on NorbCam, or maybe over here. But make sure before you do that, just always remember to drop that subscribe, like, and comment, share this video. Appreciate it. So I appreciate everyone who called in. Coach Marsh, of course, appreciate you taking the time to be here, man.
I'm going to that one.
You're going to that one. Okay. All right.
That's what I'm going for.
That one. All right. That's cool. Thanks, Coach, for being on here. Always appreciate what you bring. And to the audience, everybody who was in the chat, and especially those who donated on the super chat, thank you so much for your support. And to the moderators, Alina Dahl and Nick LeBeau, appreciate you guys. So thank you so much. See you at the next video. Go Hawks.